Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to kindly request to fill up the inner circle so that those who are coming later will fill up the outer circles. I would like to request for those who are sitting at the outer circle to fill up the inner circle so that those who are coming later will fill up the outer circle. Thank you very much.
When is the national beverage company coming?
Get the kiss on here. Not in Malaysia.
They're going to the boss.
Policy maker is not here.
I think they're the one going to the boss.
Mohana is coming.
Yeah, okay.
I think Mohana is coming. Let's see.
No filtering like this time. I see you.
And please make sure that your handphones are in silent mode or to be turned off. Before we start, I have few announcements here. We have provided you with a meeting kit which includes publications, briefing note, and also a letter requesting for contribution of article for our very first magazine of Forum IA Malaysia, and together with deadlines to reply and deadline to submit your articles. And there is also Forum IA membership form for those who are interested to become part of us. You may fill up the form and submit to us. And if you are looking for restroom, the restroom is on your left. Once you exit this room, turn your left again and the restroom is on your right. And men's prayers room is at the right. After you exit this room, walk all the way straight and the prayers room is on your left. Ladies' prayers room is at the first floor. Very good morning, everyone, and may I extend a warm welcome to our guest of honor, Professor Dr. Marimutu Nadesan, President of Federation of Malaysian Consumer Association (FOMCA), Dato Engineer Abdul Kadir Muhammad Din, CEO of Indah Water Consortium Sdn Berhad, Dato Teo Yen Hua, CEO of National Water Services Commission, Engineer Jaseni Maidinsa, CEO of PBA Holdings Berhad, Professor Chan Ngai Weng, President of Waterwatch Penang, Dr. Chin Yung Kyong, Executive Director of KPMG, Ms. Radna Devi Nadarajan, Secretary General of Forum IA Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen and distinguished guests, my name is Radhi and I will be the MC for the day. We are here today for a roundtable discussion organized by Forum Air Malaysia together with Water and Energy Consumer Association Malaysia or WECAM. This event is conducted in commemoration of World Water Day 2013. World Water Day is celebrated on the 22nd March every year since 1993. This year, the theme focused on water cooperation as United Nations General Assembly has declared this year as the International Year of Water Cooperation. And our organizers have decided to conduct the roundtable discussion today in conjunction with the World Environment Day. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to briefly introduce you to our organizers today, Forum Air Malaysia and also WECAM. Forum Air Malaysia was formed to assist National Water Services Commission (SPAN) and carry out duties as Forum Air under the Water Services Industry Act 2006. This includes duties and responsibilities that are outlined in Section 70 of the Act. This includes representing the interests of consumers in the water and sanitation sector in ensuring clean, safe, sustainable and continuous supply of water. This also includes awareness, promotion and behavior change among consumers in line with water demand management policies and protection of natural water resources. WECAM, on the other hand, was established to protect consumer interests of all groups in the life cycle of water and energy sector. It starts with the formation of FOMCA in 1973, which is a technical support group to FOMCA. As a fast-growing entity, this environment desk was eventually formed to be an independent body that focuses on water and energy issues as well as generally on environmental issues. Ladies and gentlemen, the primary objective of our discussion today is to create a platform for all stakeholders to have a chance to share their opinion on Malaysia's water issues and eventually to encourage cooperation between all parties for a sustainable water management in Malaysia. Towards achieving this ultimate objective, 3 specific objectives were adopted in the content of discussion today. First, to facilitate dialogue among all stakeholders to promote innovative solutions for nurturing water cooperation. Second is to enhance and to share knowledge on best practices. Third, to promote partnership, dialogue and cooperation among stakeholders. We also have the privilege of having here today Ms. Radna Devi Nadarajan, Secretary General of Forum Air Malaysia, to deliver an opening speech and also to moderate the discussion today. Please allow me to say a few words about Ms. Radna Devi. She oversees the development of water and sanitation programs undertaken by Forum Air Malaysia. She also peer-reviewed Asian Development Bank ADB study on water and energy for the Malaysian chapter. She identifies needs for research and surveys with regards to water quality and sustainability. She completed the National Water Consumption Survey and Report in 2010. Ms. Radna is also actively engaged in water and energy related publications such as Bulletin Forum Air, Thought Series and Water Usage Guidebook for consumers as well brochures for consumers. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together in helping me welcome Ms. Radna Devi Nadarajan.
A very good morning to distinguished guests and participants, panelists. I'm not going to do a very formal opening remark. I think we are very eager to get into the discussion for today. This is what our MC have mentioned today. This roundtable discussion is the first of its kind, and just for those who may not be aware, we are doing a live streaming of this session, and you'll appear live, maybe celebrity soon, I don't know. And it is an event that we have organized in conjunction with 2 very important international events. One is the World Water Day, which falls on March every year, 22nd, and the other one is World Environment Day, which is today, every year celebrated on June 5th. The World Water Day for this year focuses on water cooperation, calling on multiple stakeholders to come together to solve an issue which is related to an element which is very much a matter of life and death, which is water. Now, we have participants who we expect to join online as well, because we closed the registration for the physical participation. So there's many interests, so we said you can still join, participate online, and also comment, provide comments online. And for today, we have invited participants who are not, we did not do a Jualan Lambat kind of invitation. Very specific, because they are also decision makers in their own rights, in their own organizations. They are from government agencies related to water sector. They are from water operators. They are also from organizations which support the water and sanitation service sector. We have academicians, researchers, small and medium enterprises, and also the manufacturing sector and the media. Did I leave anybody out? Okay. So we call on, there will be, after each round of comments from the panelists, there will be a question and answer session, right? The mics are provided. Please, when you ask questions, be brief, straight to the point. No mini presentations. You can please introduce yourself and the organization that you represent, and we'll get the comments from the panelists in response to your questions or your comments. We'll also take comments online, and I will start with introducing our distinguished panelists. A real experienced group of panelists that we have gathered here. Please welcome Dr. Chin Yung Kyong. He's the Executive Director of one of the Big Four, KPMG. It's an audit, tax and advisory services firm. Now, his study on the Malaysian water industry and wastewater industry was an indispensable component leading to the water sector regulatory reform during the time of the late Tun Lim Keng Ek, right? And I think your book on water tablet has rave reviews, right? And it's a very important publication. And Engineer Jasni Maidin Shah, he is the CEO of PBA Holdings, or Perbananan Bekalan Air Holdings Berhad, which serves the water supply services need of the people in Penang. And the PBA HB has got very good best practices to share, and rightly so they have done through Engineer Jasni at more than 20 conferences, right? And he's also the council member of the Malaysian Water Association. Please welcome also Dr. Marimuthu Nadesan, President of the Federation of Malaysian Consumers Association, FOMCA. And for 40 years now, this umbrella body of Consumer Association has created or has educated consumers nationwide through their annual consumer education program. And under his leadership, FOMCA has conducted what is perhaps the first national water consumption survey, which was supported by KETA in 2008-2010. And FOMCA was also key in providing inputs during the regulatory reform exercise under the late Tun Lim Keng Ek. And Dato' Marimuthu Nadesan is also the Water Commissioner. Dato' Teo Yen Hua, thank you for coming, Dato', is no stranger to the water and sanitation sector, being the memory, right, he's an institution by himself, of the whole water sector reform exercise, and is currently the CEO of the Water and Sanitation Regulator, SPAN, Suruhanjaya Perkhidmatan Air Negara, since it was established. Dato' Engineer Abdul Kadir Muhammad Din is the CEO of Indah Water Consortium, IWK, and it's also, as you know, it's one of the major service sanitation or sewage service provider in Malaysia. He has more than almost 3 decades of experience in the industry and has served as the Chief Operating Officer of Pengurusan Aset Air Berhad, or PAAB. And currently, he's also the subcommittee chairman of the committee which is reviewing the Malaysian standards on a code of practice for design and installation of sewerage systems. And among the most active civil society for water, please welcome Professor Chan Ngai Weng, President of Water Watch Penang, who is also a lecturer in University Science Malaysia. Now, I understand, Professor, you have been awarded the Asia Water Management Excellence Award in 2010. Right?
Small one.
He's currently the International Water Resource Association Vice President, right? And has published more than 100 papers on water, flood and environment management. And please also welcome all of you who have come here and to form a key part of our discussion. And as I said, they represent various stakeholders because Water Corporation calls for the cooperation among different stakeholders. To help put things into context, we will show a very short multimedia presentation just to capture some of the issues in relation to water and sanitation in Malaysia. Can we have the video, please? Dr. Teo. It goes without saying, climate change has impacted Malaysia, and especially with regard to rainfall pattern. Sometimes we have too much rain causing flash floods, and also prolonged time with no rain. And reports have indicated that just government assistance alone amounts to 3 billion for the last decade, in addressing, providing assistance after the matter of fact of the flood. Now, how do you see that affecting the water and sanitation sector?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lana. And firstly, let me thank the organizer, Forum IE and WECAM, for inviting SPAN to participate in today's roundtable discussion. Now, when you look at climate change, it just happened to, I think there is a serious floods now in Central Europe. For the past 50 years, they have not encountered such problem. In Malaysia, we do face the same thing. I don't think that we can run away from that. In the case of water supply and sanitation, what we have noticed is that the previous record of quite predictable type of rainfall pattern is now slightly becoming less predictable. And for water supply, which for water supply, the requirement is not only for human consumption, for drinking, but also for our the other economic activities, both commercial and industrial, and also tourism. What we discovered is that it is getting more challenging. And I still can recall just only 2 years ago when there was a very heavy rainfall in in Seremban area, Sungai Linggi. You know, the whole water intake could not be used in one of the plant because, you know, the river was just, the flow would just divert the water away from the intake. Now, there is one instance that we would like to see that how, you know, we move on to address, to make sure that we can try to minimize. I do not think that we can run away from meeting the challenges of climate change. Now, the other one is that, you see, the requirement for raw water, to be able to use the raw water from the river, because over 95% of our water, raw water comes from the river, surface land off. How do we manage this more unpredictable climate conditions? Well, I mean, water consumption, water treatment for potable purposes is required 365 days in the year. It's not something like irrigation, you know, only certain months. But which means that when there are seasons of periods of heavy rainfall, now how do you manage that excessive of rainfall, surface land off, in order for us to make sure that during the dry season that we are able to have enough raw water? And what will be the role, not only from the government, but also individuals? You know, how do we play our part to conserve water? Those are the challenges, which I think is real. All of us will have to address that. Malaysia, we are blessed with abundance of rainfall. We are talking about 3,000 millimeters of rainfall a year. But with climate change, we can't expect that every year the climate, the pattern, the rainfall pattern will be the same going forward. That is basically what I think that you know, we really have to prepare ourselves.
Engineer Jasni, as a water operator, one of the very efficient one from industry report, how do you think, I mean from a water operator perspective, what challenges do you foresee in terms of changing rainfall pattern and the effect of climate change?
I think my view on this issue has always been that you must protect the water catchment. In most conferences that I present, I stress the beginning and the end of water industry is the water catchment, because it's the beginning of the water supply value chain. Now, even you have a climate change, we can do our part because we have the laws to gazette a water catchment. At one conference organized by the National Audit Conference, I presented a paper. I asked, in this country, where is the audit on water catchment for every state in Malaysia? I think we want to know for each state at what stage it is. Sometimes we read the papers when somebody cut trees in a water catchment. Everybody says it's been gazetted. It's been gazetted under what law? We want a gazette which is permanent. We do not want a gazette which can be de-gazetted quietly. You know, there are laws which can be de-gazetted quietly. So, to me, water is a strategic commodity. The country must realize that, yeah? And those who are water stressed will realize that the value of no water is actually infinity. For instance, if you are in the middle of a desert and you hold an auction and a camel comes by with a container of water and you have all the billionaires there, they will pay anything for that water. And I met a lot of Arabs. They say, Allah is merciful. He gave us oil to pay for water. So there's a balance there. So here, we have to protect the catchment. If you don't, there won't be a water industry. Not that there won't be. The cost of water will be more expensive. Of course, we engineers are an innovative lot. Yeah? There are two types of engineers. One is an eco-friendly engineer. One is a gung-ho engineer. Yeah? That means he will give you a solution that you can desalinate water, Can? But at what cost? The public has to pay for it. So right now in Malaysia, we have enough surface water, which is the cheapest available source of water. So we must protect it and maximize it. Yeah? Okay? And after that, if shortages occur after we protect, then of course we innovate. Yeah? But right now, surface water is the cheapest and we must protect it. We don't want water catchments being converted into mango plantations, for instance, near a dam. I mean, that is ridiculous. And we don't want politicians to say it's okay to log because they earn a lot of money for the state. To me, it is sinful to log a tree in a catchment. Totally sinful. Because generations, our children and grandchildren depend on the water in the future. So we must gazette and protect the water catchment. And Malaysia should do it now. Whatever climate change is happening, in fact, if you gazette the water catchment, you are doing a big favor to preserve the natural habitat, because it serves as an eco area. And the main thing is, it is the source of water. A lot of people do not understand the role of trees and forests in generating and preserving water. Yeah? Actually, they learn that in Form 5 in science, but they forget. Because it's very important that the clouds must achieve dew point. Sometimes you see black clouds everywhere, but it does not rain. Why? Because the temperature has not reached dew point. And who can bring the temperature to dew point? It is the trees. The trees will create the cooling effect, and the clouds will form rain. And that is the water cycle that we must protect. Yeah? Okay?
Dr. Chin, during the, drawing on what Dato' Teo and Engineer Jasni have mentioned, water catchment, right? It's a land issue, right? And logging activities or any other clearing activities for any other economic purposes is a state matter. Right? During the regulatory reform exercise, the scope of SPAN was decoupled from this land issue because it's very sensitive to the state. Why did that happen?
A very good question. Now, if you recall, before the reforms happened, before we undertook the study in August 2004, one of the first things I did was to understand why the previous attempts to have the industrial reform did not go through. So I had the opportunity to actually, one of the first person I actually had to sit down and discuss was Tan Sri Leong Mogi, because he attempted that, and I spoke to him and I learned what were the pain points and the sensitive points on the reforms. So that actually allowed me to have some insights to that. Now, So when I was given a challenge to look at the whole reform of the industry, the objective was very clear, to have long-term sustainability of the water industry. Now, on the one hand, you have a situation where the states, based on the federal constitution at that time, have the control of the water supply services. But we also realize that to have long-term sustainability, we need to do it at a federal level. Or why is that the case? Now, at the point in time, the states were already owing to the tune of nearly $8 billion to the federal government, and there were no signs of repayment happening, right? So it was very clear that the industry cannot continue, and the financial problems can only grow. Now, on the other hand, the states were very apprehensive that the federal government would take over the rivers, the land, the trees, and everything else. So that was a challenge that I had, or rather that we all have. So I have to come up with a model that would satisfy the aspiration of the state government. We need to satisfy the objective of the federal government. At the same time, we need to ensure that the stakeholders, the consumers, and everybody else are taken care of. And it's mind-boggling that when we put all these constraints together, there is no common factor. So we then actually went around and looked at the models around the world. And it became clear at that point in time there was a lot of attention was given to the UK model. That the more I look deeper into the UK model, if the greater the difference that I saw between the UK and Malaysia, because in the UK the tariff was sufficiently high for them to be sustainable. In Malaysia we can't. The disparity was just too great. So to get the buy-ins from the state, we came up with this model, and they said, you know what? So we have to go around to every state to get consent from the Chief Minister, Menteri Besar, and the State Exco. So this is what we say. We saw the idea and say, you know what? We'll come up with a model. You keep the rivers, you keep the trees, you keep the land. You also keep your water company. You own the water company. We're not taking that away. We're going to give you money. Would you object? We say no. So then the next question, what is the trick? So the only thing that you all have to give up is your state regulatory power. So that means the regulatory power is ceded to the federal government. That was the basis of how the National Water Services Commission was set up. But to allow that to happen, we need to amend the federal constitution, because from the transfer from the state list to the concurrent list. So the regulator has a very important function here, is to drive efficiency. Without efficiency, it's non-tenable, and if it's not tenable, you can't get funding. So it's a domino effect. So unless you solve the first piece of the jigsaw, the whole thing will collapse. So, and that was important for that to happen, and that was where we are right now, which is in process of migration. So as it stands right now, the catchment areas are still with the states. So now, if we had jumped to say that, well, we'll take away to the catchment area, we won't be sitting here today to talk about the reforms. The reform would never happen. So we have to start with that step. So whilst this is happening, what else have we been doing? And don't forget that we have the National Water Resource Council that had been set up earlier. And I think over time, I believe that what's going to happen is that we're going to gravitate towards the integrated water resource management at some point in time. But this will happen. But let us solve the water supply services issue first. And then I think what's going to happen is that the issue of the catchment areas will also resolve over time.
I would just like to highlight, if you see there's a memorandum outside, you may have collected. One of the pertinent point I noticed, talking about catchment area. We got this statistic of all the unsanitary, majority of landfills in Malaysia unsanitary. I think only 8 are sanitary, 3 in Sarawak, 3 in Selangor, 1 each, I don't know in which other states. Apparently, the placement of these unsanitary landfills are upstream and smack right in the river basin or water catchment area. So how did this happen? Right now, Professor Chan, you've done a lot of papers on water and flood management and environment management. Why do you think this happened?
Hello. Hello. Okay. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Forum IA for inviting me. I think this is a very difficult question to say how come the sanitary landfills are located in areas that are upstream. For one reason that I can say is because downstream is already heavily populated with people, with settlements, and most of our agricultural land is also downstream. And the only areas available that's unpopulated, still in the jungle, possibly are upstream areas. So I think that's the logical reason why we put all these areas away from the population, away from the people, so that you know, we would not get a lot of complaints about, you know, smell pollution and things like that. So the other reason could be the land is still cheap in the rural areas. Could be one of the reasons. I think Dr. Chin, you're an economist, you can vouch for that. If you put it in a heavily populated area, industrial area, it's going to be very expensive to alienate the land or to buy the land, you know. So there could be other reasons. And for sure, location of these unsanitary landfills near to our rivers and to our water source is not intentional. I'm sure it's not intentional. No logical-minded person would do that sort of thing, to purposely look for a landfill near to a river. It could be accidental, and the main reason could be economics. So that's how I look at that problem. Yes.
Please,
I think this is a symptom when nobody knows where the catchment is. I just give you an example. When I joined PBA as a junior engineer about 30 years ago, I saw on the maps stating these are the catchment areas in Penang. They are maps, okay? And when I investigated, they are only maps. When we say catchment, it must be gazetted, okay? And if you go to the land office, they will chop on the plan, it's catchment. So here we have a map drawn by water engineers in PBA before, but not gazetted. And that is in PBA. So to explain this, when you do not gazette it, and when the state government and their agencies are not aware of the boundaries of the catchment, this is what will happen. Because after you gazette, if you go to the land office, any developer, anybody buys a map, it will be stated catchment, and everybody knows. Now this is the kind of respect that we must give to catchment. And in Malaysia, people do not respect. And they do not gazette it properly, and not all state agencies are aware this is a catchment. Now surely, if you want to approve a landfill, it must go to a one-stop meeting. The local councils, everybody. And everybody must know where is the catchment, so that these kind of things don't happen. These kind of things don't happen in the first world. Yeah? So, we must make sure everybody, every citizen knows that this is a catchment. This is the boundary. Then we can plan properly. I think that's the reason. Yeah?
Yeah, maybe I can just share some of my thoughts and also what has been put in place. I think there is now a growing awareness of that. Yeah, that's why we've been setting up the solid waste department. In fact, SPAN, we also work quite closely with the solid waste. Just to give an example, the Sungai Semenyih plant, which supply water mostly for the Semenyih, Klang, Kajang, Putrajaya, used to have a lot of problem with this landfill, which the leachate from the landfill, and I think the department has more or less closed. As far as I know, there is one in the Selangor side which has been closed, and now they are addressing now in the Nilai one. Now, having said that, I think I do agree with what Encik Jasani, as I mentioned. There is a need for us to preserve this water source, and in our restructuring of the water services industry, and in our what I call that promotion. Convincing the state government earlier, we do provide them with this suggestion that they should set up a raw water regulator. Because the raw water regulator will ensure that the catchment are gazetted, proper siting of the landfill, and make sure that if they want to promote industries, that it must ensure that that will not be at the expense of the raw water supply. So I think now it is in the framework is already there. The policy has been set. It is now on implementation and enforcement. So, and the federal government under this model of restructuring have also committed that if states migrated to the new regime, then moving forward, the raw water, the facilities or the infrastructure would then be supported by the federal government. So I think the framework, the policy, the legal regulatory framework has been put in place. Most of the state has also set up their raw water regulator, which like in the case of Selangor, is actually headed by the Chief Minister, Menteri Besar himself. In the case of Malacca, many other states, raw water control and the policy mechanism is put in place. So what we need now is to ensure that everyone will have to toe the line, and as what our engineer Jasani said, that don't go and de-gazette something that is re-gazetted, and that will help to make sure that we can then work together, federal, state, federal in terms of the water services regulatory and policy regulatory system, work hand in hand with the state on the raw water aspect. Thank you.
Maybe if I could add, I think also an important component of all these things, I mean, we heard from the engineer side, the regulator side, an important component of all these things is the economics behind that. Now, if you look at it, when we went round to the states and listened to their concerns, there is a costs to this catchment areas, and the cost can come in various ways. Number one is the environmental costs in protecting that environment, so there's a direct costs. There's an opportunity costs that the state have to forego. So, for example, a state will say that because I can't log, you deny me the state of an income which otherwise I would have, or you will deny the state from economic development of that particular area. Now, if you look at some of the practices in our countries, and one of the ones that I'm a little bit more familiar with it in Sydney Water, they have a very comprehensive governance on catchment areas. It's gazetted, and obviously when they gazetted the area, they're already existing development inside that area. So that would have been covered. But the point is, having a catchment area, and you look at all this practice, doesn't mean there is no development. It's just that you have to comply with all the terms and conditions. So any development that happens have to go through a series of consultation with the stakeholders, okay, and comply with all the other conditions. But the point I'm trying to make is there is a cost to this. Now, the problem that we are facing in Malaysia is our tariff is extremely low. So forget about getting the cost of raw water or cost of the catchment areas. We can't even recover costs or treatment and distribution. So how can we, at this moment in time, extremely difficult from the economic perspective, to deal with the catchment areas without a single cent that the consumers are not paying for? Now, we can go and argue to say that water is a gift of God, is from nature, so why should we pay for it? But at the end of the day, who is going to suffer is ourselves. So I think we need to recognize that equation, that supplying a pot of water to the house is not free. And there's a cost to it. And the cost that we are having right now is not complete. And this is what I mean from the very beginning. Like I said, we need a model to can bring us towards sustainability and a full cost sustainability, which I'll share with you later.
I mean, you've opened up the discussion about tariff, but I would like to touch very briefly, perhaps, or maybe in length, the downstream. We just spoke about upstream. Now let's look at downstream. Now, 72%, right? I mean, report says 72% of the Malaysian 29 million population are living in cities, in urban area. Therefore comes this issue of providing sanitation services, right, sewerage system. And another report says that out of the 50% existing STPs and infrastructure, only 50% is under IWK, and the rest are under private run. Yes. So, Dato Engineer Kadir, how can IWK help address this issue with sanitation? Just another point, DOE has reported that the biological oxygen demand in rivers are very low. I mean, that means increasingly polluted. It's contributed by organic waste, and over 70% is from untreated sewerage. The rest comes from agricultural runoff and industrial effluent. So how do you think IWK, as one of the major sanitation service provider, can help address this issue?
Okay, thank you. At last, I think I thought I've been forgotten. like normally do sewerage is always taken for granted. Not many people pay. I'm not sure whether all the audience here pay or not, but I can check if you give me your name. In any case, as what you say rightfully, sewerage is always the last, and it has been a synonym to the industry. When you look at polluted river, it relates to IWK, regardless whether it's ours or not. So in future, we're going to differentiate what is ours and what is not by color. Color coding. So our treatment plant will be a different color from the rest, just for a start. And then we are going forwards to that. In terms of pollution into the river, as you can see, when the Act was enforced in 2008, January, the statistic will show the numbers of rivers, dirty rivers, it has been increased. This is DOE statistics. And when we study the numbers before and after, when the Sewerage Services Act was formed, there was scheduled discharging, and that is a mandatory. It was done, whether people like it or not. We go to the other step and we knock on the door on a septic tank. I'm talking about septic tank first. And once the Act was enforced in January 2008, there has been a change. And one of the factors is because there's no more scheduled dislodging, and people can go and engage anyone they like. So we don't knock at people's door, except for those who really wants our advocate to continue. We still have those customers. Until they say no, we don't. And that's another factor. You have said it rightfully. We have also private people, operators still operating. But more than often, RWK, we have been strictly regulated. We submit reports to DOE. I'm sure the private people also submit the same. But the problem here, as you can see, RWK, as of today, we have roughly about 6,000 plants where we operated, right up from Peninsula and plus Labuan. I wouldn't want to touch on our concession rights. We are still holding the concession rights, whereby we supposedly taking over 144 local authorities to manage all the sewerage system in the local authority areas, and that is concession rights. And as of today, we've been given access to only 87. Thereby, in Peninsula, we didn't go into Kelantan. We are not also operating in JB Town, although Johor we operate, but only JB Town and Pasir Gudang, which I think in the near future we're going to do that. Then, of course, Sabah Sarawak, totally out. So as you can see, it's not overall that we can help. That's one area in terms of uniformity and standardization, which with the help of a regulator, we're going towards standardization. Another area of concern is the capex. You hear what Dr. Chin was trying to say. I can't avoid the topic of, I hope it's not too sacred, tariff. If water sectors, the water players say that their tariff is low, ours is free. It's free. And as of now, our tariff, we can't even carry our OPEX. If you look at the category of water operators divided into 4, I wouldn't say that I'm one, I'm less than one, maybe -1. Because it's too low that we, every now and then, the government have to, they call it subsidy or subsidized RWK. I wouldn't say the subsidy is to RWK. The subsidy is more to RWK, is a compensation for the financial gap. The subsidy is to the rakyat, not to RWK. And that's why these people enjoy the facilities. But coming back to CAPEX, that 6,000 plant, and we have also currently, of course, the government is also subsidizing. We are something like begging also government to pay us. Although we are no longer in charge of communal septic tank. Plus this communal septic tank, we are now operating about 10,000 facilities throughout nationwide. And there is a solution for that. If just need to talk about catchment, we also have catchment, and we have also strategy. I would like to mention a bit, I'm not going to elaborate more. Integrated water resource management is really in need in this country. And where RWK can help, we try our best, even though we have a lot of constraint in terms of financial. I would say that we have performed in the sense that I would say there's no outbreak of waterborne diseases, as you can see in other countries that there are lack of sanitation. So coming back to CAPEX, what is lacking here is funding. There must, governments need to fund the heavy CAPEX. RWK cannot do that. If you look at the concession, yes, we are supposed to do that, but there's no tariff increase. Next year will be 2 decades where we are in operation. Tariff has not been revised upwards, but rather 3 times downwards. So that is the contribution from the government to the rakyat, to me. But in any case, we have to do a job, we have to do a job. So if you look at the strategy in future, if you look at sanitary, here is being upstream, RWK or rather sewerage industry, in any development, the siting of treatment plant is always being given to a place that nobody wants to stay. It can be in the swamp, it can be the lowest ground, and thereby subject to floods and all these things. But moving forward, there are strategies to build more regional plants. We have around maybe about 78 regional plants in place, but that comes trickling every year. I think that Dr. Teo may be able to give you some numbers on allocation given to sewerage for this capex. So if you build a regional plant, then all the small plants can be closed down. That under what you call rationalization. And then there will be some cost saving there in terms of operation, because at the moment we are fighting with theft that always tie back to the share market. Whenever the steel price increase, then we have higher theft case, and in millions, about 8 million one time of the year. And we have also some remote area that we've been robbed off, not only the fence, but also TMB panel also they what they call rip off from our sites. And we have also problems of third party, whereby till today, I hope the government can solve, of illegal discharge. So managing around 14,000 kilometers of sewers, we have manholes. Of course, we can have a foolproof manholes where people can open at any time. But our biggest challenge is how to solve the oil and grease that has becoming a nuisance to us, because whenever this thing escape into our treatment plant, they cannot find the source, but because it comes up from IWK plant, we've been penalized for that. So in terms of the other areas, what we are trying to do now together with SPAN, we are looking at standardization so that we can educate the other operators. And we also offer them our help in terms of outsourcing to us. Even though it's private, we can still outsource to us to help operate to the standards that that's been coming. People talk about failure of privatization. I wouldn't say it's total failure, because if you were to operate back in 1950s, I wouldn't see any guidelines, I wouldn't see any standardization. It may come, but it will be very slow. But as you can see, Malaysia has been becoming a model to the neighboring countries to create similar model. This year, Philippines has emulated our model on how we handle the septage in terms of this mechanical dewatering unit, but decentralized because of logistics. So they have followed us. And the South African countries also interested to follow our model to improve their situation. You can see that it's workable, and so as other countries. I think that's the best that we can do for the moment, but it boils back to the capex funding to put the infra into a good place in order to reach to achieve the vision of 2020 and become an industrialized country. Apart from that, people talk about technology. I hear the Master of Ceremony is saying about innovation. We have a lot of innovation, but what is lacking is knowledge and appreciation of technology. We have, I wouldn't say where, Dr. Teo may know where it is. We provide, I would say, a first-class facility, but we have a third-class mentality. So it's very difficult. You want modernization, but you do not know how to you abuse the system. And yet you demand for a good what they call it. And then people misconstrue, it's best to go back to septic tank, which I think is not the right way. And then when IWK cannot perform, they say, well, to help IWK, why not we lower down the OE standard? I say no. I'm not going to go backwards. No? We try to achieve. At that moment, I'm proud to say that all in all, we've been regulated. Our compliance to the DOE standards is above 90%, if not 95% in average. So the other balance is because of not within our control, which we are still fighting. I guess I want to take this opportunity. One of the solution, maybe the government, I hope, can take this as a note. We need a single ministry to handle the water matters. Then you can become very serious in this, so that you don't have to report to, it become departmentalized or just ministry by ministry, and then you can solve this what we call catchment, integrated water resource management, integrated basin management, and then I talk about DOE regulation, because the other party may just go for enforcement without looking at the constraint. Now they start appreciating. I wouldn't say another magic word, because it will open another area of question, which people say why IWK get it but others don't. That's one area that need to be looked at seriously, so that we have one ministry to handle the water matters, regardless irrigation, water supply, and whatever usage you need. The other thing that I need to mention here, even if you have a ministry, you need a good driver. Take a note in Singapore, I'm not offending. When we started off Kallang River, I mean in Singapore, we start with Klang River, same time. And as of today, the Kallang River become a water catchment, and you have this Marina Bay, but Klang remain Klang. We stop halfway because we don't have the driver. We need a serious driver who knows about the subject matter and assisted by all the expertise. No point to having expertise, but as I say, if you have all of musicians here who knows how to play instruments, but you don't find a good orchestrate, who can orchestrate the musician, you will be not playing a song here. You know, people just run away, will not stay in the theatre. So we need a ministry, common ministry, to handle all water matters, and we need a good driver who can really drive this, so that we become a model that to be followed by others. So IWK alone, I cannot win the war. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Kade. Finally, we look at the final beneficiaries of a well-run, well-managed water resource and also water service and sanitation sector. Who are they? Consumers, right? Both domestic and private consumers. Now, we've heard reports that DID or JPS cleans up tons of rubbish from the river. And I think 2 days ago, IWK reported that STPs are suffering from rubbish in one of the major issue of challenge is also rubbish in sewage treatment plant. Why is this happening, Dr. Marimuthu? I think as one of the University Malaya study by Prof. Anggamuthu on waste management, people are aware. They know climate change, they know environment is suffering, but everybody calls for awareness. What about behavior change? What needs to happen, Dr. Marimuthu?
The first thing, I don't believe in campaigns. Because you see, every campaign the government do, Sungai Ku eventually become Kuku. We thought we wanted to clean up the Sungai. But see, Malaysians, you know there's a dustbin, whatever don't go through in the dustbin. In our river, mattresses, TV, fan, whatever you can say, it's all in our rivers. And you ask why? They say they don't have a place to throw, so they throw there. So I think so we need to have serious enforcement. Again, we come back to Kade's about Klang and this, that. Malaysian will go across, they don't throw rubbish. They come back to our country, they throw rubbish. Even swingam they throw everywhere. So we need to have a lot of enforcement. That means you cannot have enforcement kadang-kadang lah. You have to be always like human rights. Right is a right. You can have, sometimes I have rights, sometimes I don't have rights. So you must enforce continuously, and a fine is a fine. Local authority, the enforcement powers have to be beefed up, given them more opportunity to do that. And of course, we as a Malaysian, there's a lot of education I've gone through. I mean, consumers would have done. But the problem is that people need to change. You must have, sometimes people just on the tap, the water has been running, they'll be brushing their teeth. They think that we have a lot of rain thing. And of course, I could like to, one of the best state who have gazetted all the catchment area, I think is Penang. When Guaning came to power, I think so the first thing he did was gazetting. I think that might be on the advice of our great engineer here. See that. The other thing which I always talk about is that Malaysian think that water is cheap. It's no more cheap. It's going to be the more expensive than gold in future. That's what our engineer put it. But changing behavior, I think that we need to accept as holistic. Everyone had to play a part, not only the government, the industry, but the consumers. Consumers must understand it's a serious problem, especially wasting water. Not really wasting water, dumping, making sure all our rivers are polluted, maximum of rivers. Some of our rivers are coming to a stage of sudah mati, tahap mati, but fifth level. So you can say that it's a real dangerous for Malaysia, and we can't take things lightly. That's why my request to even for Selangor state government and federal government to make sure they sit down, they talk and settle the issue fast. But this is a real issue. A lot of development been halted in the last 1-2 years. Let it be whoever. If the state government, federal government have to give in, they have to give in. It's a high time because the people in Selangor also have given the full mandate to the state government. I mean, more than 2/3 of the Rakyat have said that, okay, this is the government we wanted. I think that we must have a respect for that. And whatever decision going to be made must benefit the Rakyat. And of course, for every chief minister in town, my request back again is that please relook at the tariff. Because we can't kill the industry. We can't be pumping in subsidy and subsidy. It's a real issue. No one going to operate, wants to be operator unless there is someone paying. Like I think so IWK is clear how many people have taken over in the past. I think we've been monitoring it since 1996, and the amount of corporate players have taken and given up. Finally it landed back again to the government to put in more resources. So the behavior change is that for FOMCA, for MI or WECAM, we will keep on doing the education. It had to keep on, we will do. So we have to put in more resources into education. If not, we'll have more problems.
Okay, so we've completed the first round of comments. Now I would like to invite questions from the participants. Please cite your name and where do you come from. Any questions? Yes. Mr. Terence has the mic.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Terence from SMI Association, Malaysia. And to alleviate all these water problems, I think the government should encourage well water, the underground water, in the sense that the underground water actually is free and it replenishes by itself, you know. So instead of the water goes into the river and just wasted it, why the government want to charge all consumers for using the underground water? They have the cost of filtration, they have cost of electricity to pump out the water, and all these requirements a lot of cost. And on top of that, we should encourage them because they are elevating the burdens of these government bodies. But instead of that, you are punishing by adding in tariffs and all these charges. I think this should be stopped. I think that would have to be considered, you know, that the underground water should not be charged and encourage people to use it. That's elevating the government bodies on the burdens, yeah? I hope this can consider. And then the other one is that I also noticed that the governments have spending sometimes exorbitant in their spendings in the sense that certain expenditure, capital expenditure is way above the normal. You know, I think this has to be investigated also because a lot of times the cost is added into the burden to the consumers, you see, and I think this has to be looked into as well. And I tell you, it's nothing been done despite all these people making a lot of noise. There's nothing been done. You know, I hope that this has to be reconsidered. And gazetted is another one that I think that is very important as well. The gazetted area. Thank you.
So, Mr. Terence, I mean, the highlight is groundwater, tariff for groundwater, and gazettement, is it, for water catchment, and also capital expenditure. We'll take 2 more questions. Anybody? Yes.
Morning.
One. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm loud enough. I'm Chua from a private company, Highgate Industry. Basically, we are not an industrial company, just a shell company. We are more into the solutions providers for water efficiency and sustainability issue. I want to raise a few things that the Prime Minister was talking about. One of them is, I think, we talk about education campaigns all around, right? I think we have the morals, education there in the school, right? But why then not something about green, about environmental? They score so well for moral. My kid was a good moral student. He don't score A's, okay? That's immaterial. But those other areas get tackles. That's the first one. The second one, I think, basically, in regards to Terence, high investment we always put in, or the subsidies we always put in. I think everyone should know about something called ROI, self-sustained enterprise, self-sustained investment. Then you talk about sustainability. What is all these subsidies going on? I only ask for a fraction of it. And prove it to you. See? Despite that, I get resistance from many, many quarters, including people. One thing I felt that we Malaysians are Malaysian Malay people. When they want to do something, they always think that they are better than the other people. And that's the reason why we don't share knowledge. We are always there to share knowledge with the people. Why? Because somebody pay me, right? A multinational company overseas pay me, and it's my capex also, it's my KPI also, educate self-aware. But the trouble is, probably is the approach, but also probably is the Malaysian politics. I think I'm better than you. The kind of attitudes that I felt that we can't go beyond. Because when you are so fragmented, I bullying, you bullying, so many cooks spoil your soul. I think this is what I will comment for time. Thank you.
One more before we go to the response from the panelists. Yes.
Also engineer, yes. Today I represent Selangor Water Association. I think I'm also a water engineer, but more concerned on the source of water. Conservation, how do we say it become a source of water? Thinking of reuse of water. They mentioned treatment plants. Water from treatment plants are being discharged. Our neighboring countries taking everything from the treatment plant. Do you think of treatment plant, water and sewerage? Whatever goes into the home, comes out, it goes the same amount. If you can reuse that, you don't need a source of water, right? It's all there. So basically, I want to share with us and also other panels. Okay? What's the possibility or what's the way forward in the use of sewerage water?
Thank you all. So, who would like to take a response?
I think this time I come first. I would like to answer to Engineer Alias on the source of water. Thank you for opening up. Actually, there's a lot to do on this because government has already embarked on green technology. But I feel there's a lot more to be done on green technology in terms of proper coordination of what is green. Maybe some sectors don't understand what's green. But where WECAM is concerned, before the formation of all this green concept, we have already started on our own. So we just take advantage of the situation, and we are now promoting, specifically to what we've been said just now, or asked for, the reuse. We have 3R, we have 3D. The 3R, reuse, recycle, and what they call, and reduce of all this water and also resources. I've already said in a few of my write-ups, the vision for RWK is to rebrand ourselves to become waste to resource. Meaning that when back 10 years ago, I was trying to promote a zero waste management concept and then for sustainability. And that was now in line with what the water researching is about, because it's based on the water roadmap is based on 3 elements: holistic, transparent, and sustainability. So the words holistic, we have to be holy first, of course. And then transparent, we already are transparent. With all this forum, we are very transparent. Question now is sustainability. So back to the question of recycle, we have been trying to promote, and Alhamdulillah, last year we managed to get support from local authorities, Majlis Perbandaran Podison, willing to become the first Majlis to use our product. And they have used our effluent water, they have used our biosolids, not for drinking purposes, not for your papaya trees or tomato trees, no, it's purely for beautifying the pollution area, and it looks green. And they have tested for 6 months, and they're very happy. Soon there will be more majlis. Next, maybe Dewan Bandaraya Kuala Lumpur also using our water, and also next I think going to be Kedah, and the rest will follow suit. So the subject of water recycle, you see, people talk about crisis. Currently, top in the list is Klang Valley water crisis, which just like a meteor going to hit the earth. But what are we doing about it? So other than more capex, and more capex. Where WK is concerned, a small fry, we are trying to help, but I hope our voice being heard. Because currently, if you look at all the water that we discharge, in total, it's about 4,000 MLD, and it's about, if I'm not mistaken, about 25% of the potable water needed by humans. And in Klang Valley, we have a lot of regional plants, and we are trying to promote. Hopefully, we can get some support to reuse this water, especially for non-potable, because we are not that desperate like other countries to use this water as drinking purposes, although we can, but we are not going to do it. We are promoting this for, of course, for the use of irrigation purposes, which I think most of local authorities need water to irrigate, especially during the drought season. There are also another industry called the construction industries. As I always say, you don't need Shabas water to core the hill or to core the rock. Not necessary, because they don't need all this, treated water that heavily needed by the humankind. But also, the business entity will look at cost benefit against human needs. So you have to balance yourself. We are ready. So the facilities are ready. To me, if you look at the logical side, if you look at anyone who has gone up to my mobile exhibition bus, we have a sample to show that our water, if I don't tell you what it is, it's as clear as what you see in the mineral water. It's clear. It comes in black, in chocolate in color. Those who have noticed, those who want to notice. Most of you don't notice. Especially this morning, I'm sure you visit a small room. So when it goes out from a treatment plant, it becomes crystal clear. What you need is just a little bit more polishing. If you do not want any more, what they call this, to the layman, I say it's germs. But basically, there's no E. coli. E. coli is very low. It can be treated. So in the overseas, this is not new. It's just matter like what Datuk Marini to say. It's about education. IWK has already prepared some educational books. That's what been mentioned by Mr. Chua just now. We are ready. Hopefully, the education department is also ready to. We have produced a book, preschool book and primary school book, to educate on environment, and we cover environment, water, and sewerage. That we are ready. So I'm not going to divert too much on that. But going back to the water reuse, we are ready. And the vision of the PM, who has endorsed this. When I presented in the council called the Climatic Change and Green Council, he has endorsed and supported that at least one LA per state to use IWK effluent water and biosolids, and that goes back to environment. But there may be some sectors. Having said all this, I have to be careful, because if I really use all the water from my plant, then maybe some river will run dry. So that we have to look at the balancing act, what is best. The only thing that we need in the future is a policy, a good policy and solid policy to incentivize those people who use this, I may call second-grade water, and a policy of how we should reuse this. Because when you do this, obviously to the buy-in, if let's say, example, if Sabah were to I'm just take Sabah because you're in Klang Valley. If they were to charge RM2, I cannot be charging RM2. Example, maybe 150, just to cover at cost. No profit, just for the sake of what I call conservation. And this is what we should do, apart from the efforts of rain harvesting and also other recycling. So that portion, I hope that can be done. To have answered Cik Alia's question on that. On Mr. Terence Wong, maybe Jasni and Mr. Dr. Teo can add in further. On the groundwater, it has been tried. The cost to transfer, I think last time was Samdabi. They tried deep in the forest or in the one of this Samdabi plantation. The cost to transfer, the cost to abstract is already $1, and to transfer that volume of water, what few or more than 7 kilometers away, the pumping cost is going to kill you, and it will be more than what you have in what they call water operator charges. That's number one on cost. Second, there are history. If you look, those who studied, and I wouldn't say in detail. Some countries, when you over abstract, of course it's replenished, but when you over abstract, there will be ground erosion, and then the foundation will be affected. So that needs to be studied, because the rate of replenishment, because when people become greedy, they abstract too fast. They abstract too fast, then there will be soil erosion underground, and the damage is beyond imagination. Just a word of caution on that. Capex, I agreed, need to be looked at, because we have to look at the priority of what is needed. Gazetting of catchment is already a must. So for Mr. Chua, environmental, yes, I'm in support of that. I have not thought of launching time to launch my preschool book. So hopefully my hope is the government under the Ministry of Education will include a subject of environment that will include water, sewerage and solid waste. As an engineer by profession, also my basic foundation, we've been taught to tackle problem at source. So the source of what we said by Mr. Marimitu is education. Our generation may be gone, but what is in the future? We must set path for the future generation, that they appreciate what is life and what is needed in order to survive in the upcoming world.
Very briefly, Dr. Teo, Engineer Jasni, the groundwater, do you want to add anything else? Yes.
The main groundwater is the SMI industry's own factory groundwater. What I'm saying is that they, as you say, the cost is so expensive, yet you put a tariff on them again, you double the cost. That's why it becomes ineffective for the SMI industries to grade groundwater. I think that should be stopped on the tariff basis, because as you say, your own water you extract is so expensive. Can you imagine you add in tariff onto them? I think you make it very inefficient. I think that should be stopped, and encourage them to have underground water. I think they won't double extract more than what, because whatever you extract, you get no water out from them. Actually, the well is well. There's limitation of water. So there's always replenishment timing. They have already calculated. Naturally, they are calculated. Otherwise, you draw, it would dry. The well is dry. So it's naturally taken care by itself. It won't be overdrawn from the underground. So I think this has to be looked into. That the tariff should not be added in, as the cost is too high for them. So this also helps the industries. Okay, thank you.
I don't know whether which state that imposed tariff, or I think it is more the raw water charge. I think which. Okay. No. Hello.
No, I don't know whether you are referring to which one. You see, because just now I think Dr. Chin mentioned about the need to protect the catchment area. I think for the water services industry, we do allow the state government to impose like 5 cents, I think Penang 3 cents per meter cube. That is for them to protect the catchment. But in your case, I don't know whether you are looking at SMI having some abstraction of the groundwater. That I think it is the state. It is within the state's purview. I don't. I'm not aware whether what is the amount of royalty charge. It shouldn't be excessive. But in our case, I think we would like to ensure that actually for domestic consumption, for portable use, that is for our human consumption, we would like to promote that they use the public water supply. The reason being that public water supplies is being checked, the quality is being checked by Ministry of Health. If it is for potable purposes, I think, for drinking purposes, we should encourage public water supply rather than private system. In the case of Kelantanese use a lot of well water, but you can see that most of them do not test the water, do not check the water quality. They just abstract and consume the water, and that is not advisable. Yeah, even World Health Organizations has proposed that a lot of for human consumption we would like to discourage that. It's better that through this public water supply system to ensure quality. But if it is for industrial purposes, then I think that is a policy that the state decides.
We also have a licensing, yearly license check on it, So we all paid a license, and which is already paid a license for checking. So it's already naturally is safe for consumptions. On top of that, why the drawing out of the water, you need to have paid them 5 cents. As you know, your government itself also show that it's effective to withdraw from your own well. And here we are all our SMI industry is drawing own well. It's a lot of cost. You added in again on top that they are discouraging them. And yet you say that the government has not enough supply to water to Selangor. On the other hand, you want to put tariff on them, and they are helping the government to alleviate the problems. So I think not only Selangor, the other states as well. So I don't find the logic, that why you do that. And licenses are being tested. All well has a license to be tested by the government. So it's already alleviated the problem of the health problems. So there's no issue at all. That is
wait. Sorry. You say that all the wells are being tested.
Most of the well that is licensed.
Licensed, yes, but not tested.
Yeah, but if you not.
Yeah, you see, that's why I say if it is not for human consumption, then the requirement for to test the water quality is not there.
Yeah. I agree with that.
But I think the state regulation is to ensure that there is no over abstraction of the groundwater. I think that was the purpose,
Yeah,
but in our policy advice to them, federal government will say that actually, if they want to impose any royalty, it should not be excessive. So if 1 meter cube, which is 1 ton of water, you're charging 3 cents. Are we saying that it's excessive, or 5 cents?
Yeah,
so 10 ton is only 50 cents, but I don't know how much they charge you, But I presume that it's not something that 1 or 2 ringgit per meter cube.
But no, I think it should be apologized to say your own drawing out is so inefficient. The cost is too high. Why do you add in the burden discouraging them? I don't answer the logic, And the other one is that it replenishes by itself, the water, and you cannot control the olden days. You look at our olden days, we don't have that water. They were well. You cannot control them. You cannot say that it's in hygienic. Basically, you cannot control them. So let it be. You see. I think that should be let it be.
Yeah.
They have no surrogate. If they got to die of food poisoning, or they know how to control themselves. These are kampung people. You cannot help. Even you have regulations, so you cannot control the kampung people. I'm talking about industries. We have all the industries has the licensing. And approval, so
that is something I think
SMI industry is suffering.
They may want to take it up with the state government.
Yes.
Yeah. But coming back to Datuk Kadir's concept of reuse, or the model of reuse of this wastewater that has been treated. You must study the economics of it. You must study the economics. I think Dr. Chin has mentioned that. A water supply, I was just looking at the rates in Selangor. For above 35 meter cube for industrial is only 2 ringgit 38 cents. Now you send a tanker of 10 tons of water tanker to carry that water from Datuk Kadir's water treatment plant, the sewage treatment plant, the effluent. The cost of transportation as against water supply from the public water supply system of 2 ringgit 38 cents. 10 ton is 23 ringgit 80 cents. So, so the economics of it, there is no economics that will incentivize this usage of the wastewater effluent for, except for those that under government that we encourage them to do that, which we started in Port Dickson. And I was told that then the Green Tech Council has decided that every state should adopt that. What is important is in the planning of going forward, the planning aspect of siting the wastewater plant has to be close to the industrial sites. In Singapore, they put a separate blue, the purple color pipe to differentiate between the potable water pipe as against this wastewater pipe. Why? That is to ensure that there is buy-in and there is no objection from the people. I do not think that we can allow this wastewater one to go into the potable water system, especially in Malaysia when we have such abundance of water. So from planning aspect of it, it has to be right from the beginning. When we plan for this wastewater treatment plant, put it nearer to the industrial site so that the cost of piping the wastewater, if you have to put another tertiary treatment, then only that it will be cheaper than consumers, industrial consumer buying from the public water supply, taking water from public water supply.
Engineer Justin, you very briefly.
Very briefly. Thank you. From our studies, currently, surface water is still the cheapest. Okay, when we talk about economics. Now, Penang is a water stress state, so of course we look 20, 30 years ahead. Okay? So basically, surface water is still the cheapest. Therefore, we must protect the catchment so that the surface water is still there. Now, as for groundwater, there is no groundwater in Penang, but in general, nobody in the world extract water from the ground when you can see a river flowing. Simple, yeah? You don't need a rocket scientist to tell you that it's cheaper to treat water when you can see the water flowing in front of your eyes than to go and dig into the ground. So in most countries who do underground water are those countries where the rivers are dry in summer. They don't have rivers in summer, so they have to do groundwater. But in Malaysia, we have rivers, yeah. So that's why it's still the cheapest. Then, after we balance the tariff to capture the cost of doing the supplying and treating, then recycling comes into the horizon. Okay? But not now. If we have exhausted all our surface water, then we can consider recycling. Then after recycling is desalination. So that is the stage. Unless something revolutionary happens in this world, there is a quantum leap in technology, in recycling, or in desalination, which makes it so cheap or competitive with surface water, then of course we will go into that. Now, what Singapore did was really brilliant. To make desalination and recycling economically viable, they increased their tariff to the future price. So Singapore's water is 10 times Penang, and therefore is economically viable to do desalination. But they get a byproduct, yeah? Now they become the hub for desalination worldwide. In fact, soon they are going to open their one of the biggest desalination plant in the world. So there are pros and cons. So what they did was to price the water in the future to make desalination and recycled water viable. Yeah? So depends how the government wants to do things. But here we are looking at the least cost, because that's the logical way. Right now, surface water is the least cost. Then later, if the resource becomes scarce, and if we don't manage to protect our catchment, yeah, then we go recycle. And recycle must be piped. Cannot be transported by lorries, Datuk Teo. No way. You must lay a separate pipe. Then only is economically viable, and you should target industrial estates because they don't need potable water. They need for manufacturing, they need for cooling their air cons, and all that. And then lastly is desalination. So Malaysia, no big deal desalination because the whole country is surrounded by seas. But the cost is higher because desalination involves energy. Everything in desalination is energy. So energy is petrol, yeah, and petrol is high. Thank you.
Prof. Chan. You can straight talk.
Anyway, I just want to have a small little solution to Karen's problem. I think SMI being industry and is a private concern, if the cost is become too exorbitant to pump out the water, why don't just use the pipe water? I mean, logical, just stop pumping and change to pipe water, solve all the problems really, isn't it? So I think the price that the state government is charging is not too high. I think so. Yeah, it's low. It's actually very low. That's why they keep on pumping. Coming back to the other problem, I was in Bangkok for a year on a sabbatical in Asian Institute of Technology, and the whole city is sinking because of over obstruction of this groundwater. And you can see the signs. All the buildings in AIT, actually they have gone down a few inches, and some of them actually sank in. And all this is because of over obstruction. And the plant is not even in AIT. The plant is located miles away. So it's a serious problem. And one more serious problem is because underground pipes are also sinking together with the IWA pipes. They get mixed, and we have serious problem of pollution of the water, the pipe water. So that becomes a very, very serious problem in Bangkok. So I think we have to be very, very careful when we want to go into groundwater. I concur with Engineer Jasni that groundwater, if we have this resource, it should be safe for the future. When we have no other choice, then we will go into groundwater. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Terence, I think we know we have to look at this on a case-to-case issue. I think with related to drawing groundwater for food production and all that, and I think then the safety issue comes in and all the other issue comes in. We have to look at it from case-to-case basis. Yes, and since we've opened up the topic on tariff, I would like to ask Engineer Jasni, perhaps from the water operator, how important is tariff review and the structure of reviewing tariff in addressing water consumption pattern? And is there a transparent mechanism for a tariff review? Engineer Jasni?
Thank you. So now we are moving to the second stage of the value chain. We're moving from raw water to treated water. So before you can even talk about reviewing tariff, the psyche of the human being is, how is the service? So this is why in my talks I always argued, before you can talk about reviewing tariff, people want to rate how efficient are you. You know, it's together, you know. So then when we talk about how efficient are you in water supply, you are talking about NRW, kan? Because NRW is water loss. Then we talk about NRW, and if every year the water company do not show any evidence of reducing that NRW, I believe you cannot talk about water tariff review, because no way the consumer going to accept, whereby they are clever enough now to figure out that if you reduce your NRW, you generate more funds. So why are you passing the buck to the consumers? That is, I think, the view of educate consumers. You cannot review tariff if you have not improved your NRW figures. Okay? So when we talk about that, we are talking about operations. We are talking about production, distribution, billing, customer service. We are talking about operations on a 24-hour basis, because water supply is a 24-hour business. And some water companies in Malaysia, they still haven't reached that 24-hour mentality. Correct? Some of them do not have customer service yet on a 24-hour basis. So how can you handle customers? Because if a company provide services on a 24-hour basis, then you must have a 24-hour response time. You cannot tell the consumer, we cannot repair your pipe because we can only do it tomorrow morning. Office tutup. Cannot. Yeah. And among all the industries, the water industries is the last boy in the queue. I'm talking about services, yeah. We're talking about banks, we're talking about telcos, we're talking about TMBs, yeah. Water industry is the last boy. That's why the price of the product is also the lowest. When the price of the product is the lowest, they do not attract many people. Of course, people prefer to go to oil industry when they graduate from universities, or they go to banking, they go to finance. But now there is this awareness, like Dato' Marimutu says, oil, water will be is like oil in future. Yeah, it's a 21st century commodity. Now, so operation excellence is very important, top priority in our country, before you talk about tariff review. So how to measure that is the NRW, because everything you do will contribute to NRW, because that is losses. Now if I'm an engineer, I talk to another engineer, say an oil engineer, they will laugh at me. Hey, what lah your industry? In my industry is zero NRW. Am I right? There is no leakage in an oil pipeline. Why? Why? After all, if you study engineering, oil and water are liquids. They share the same engineering laws, physics laws. But why in the oil industry there's no leak? Why in water got leak? Here is the perception that water is cheap, so therefore tak ada apa. And we do not use good quality pipes, specials and fittings. If you go into an oil pipeline, you see the classification is first class, nothing less. Yeah, but you go to the water industry, depends. Yeah? After Second World War, we used AC pipes. The whole world used asbestos cement pipes because it was the cheapest. Yeah, but not the oil industry. So those pipes are breaking and it has to be replaced. So those countries those places which replace all this will reduce the NRW. Okay. So before you can talk about that's why there's a lot of resistance. Because they know they can calculate now. 1% NRW is how many million cubic meter? And how many million cubic meter multiplied by the rate will get how many million ringgit? It's a lot. So then when you want to raise the tariff, they ask, hey, last year your NRW berapa? So if no improvement, why you want to raise my tariff? There will be resistance. So this is my perception lah. Because for instance, the people in Penang, they are like that. You cannot do anything if you have not shown any improvement. Okay. So then after you achieve operational efficiency, automatically you can reduce your NRW. So what is operational efficiency? Basically, you are supposed to do what you're supposed to do lah. So a lot of people, they're supposed to do 10 things, they're not doing it, and they want to do other things. Now, basic, you know, you must do the 10 things you're supposed to do. So in Penang, that's what we have been doing. Okay, and we try to keep the cost down. Having said that, we found people are wasting water. That one we cannot tahan. People who waste water need to be penalized. So big argument. Where is the level where you say you waste water? So what we did was we fall back on Ministry of Finance. You remember many years ago, until now also, they're talking about introducing the GST. Okay? Under the GST, if you use more than 35 meter cube of water, you kena GST. So that is the threshold. 35,000 liters per month is equivalent to a family of 5 using reasonable amount of water. Okay? That's why the GST, if you use less than 35, you tak kena GST. So we adopted that, and at the end of 2010, we introduced the water conservation surcharge to penalize people who overuse water. Only to the domestic, yeah. Trade we don't touch, yeah. Only domestic. So what we found was that 28% of our domestic consumers kena discharge. And you know how much water they use? This 28%, they use 54% of the total domestic water. And they make Penang the champion #1. Not consumer lah. 294 liters per day. We are champion there. Yeah. And if this 28% can reduce to 35 meter cube, we will be able to lower it to the national average. Okay? So it takes time. Because the rate is still cheap. But our thinking is that even if we review the tariff, still this surcharge will be there, because we want to make sure people don't waste this limited resource. Okay? And this is practiced in quite a number of countries, in Scandinavian countries, in Singapore. In Singapore, they call it water conservation tax. Yeah? But in Malaysia, we are the first to introduce it. So we want to use it to educate people. But sometimes, Dato' Marimutu, this is like cigarette, you know. Water can be like cigarette. No matter what price, the smokers still buy. Okay? But we think we can, when they feel the pinch, human beings are like that, then they'll start to use less. Okay? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Jasni. Dato' Teo, based on what Engineer Jasni has said, and I think a lot of feedback from the consumers also concur, that whenever tariff review is announced, some people are afraid of a political backlash, and consumers are in general not convinced that the tariff needs to be reviewed. It's not that they don't want tariff to be reviewed, that they're not convinced that it needs to be reviewed. So what has PAN done?
Okay, that's why I think there's a need for me to spend a little bit of time just to share with everyone on the whole restructuring exercise reform. Mr. Torrance Kwa, you see, when federal government amended the constitution into the year 2005, these were the issues that we wanted to address. Water supply used to be under the purview of the state government. And state government, as you notice that some state government privatized the whole value chain of supplying water. Two states were the one what was Johor and Selangor. Some other states privatized certain value chains like water treatment. However, because private sectors, when they have a concession, they need to go and borrow money to implement the capital works. And because it is a concession that with a limited tenure, that is 20 years, 25 years, normally they have to pay back the borrowing, and that has to be funded from the tariff increase. And as a result of that, I think even Johor and Penang were running into difficulties of how to meet this repayment of loans from the banks. And as a result of that, it built up a lot of loans that are or payments to the water treatment plants that cannot be made. And this is the reason that why federal government stepped in, introduce the law, and through a funding mechanism that we call it asset-light model, whereby federal government will undertake the development of capex, and water operator will then focus purely on operation and maintenance. And this answers your question why you were seeing that some of it was so expensive. But through this mechanism, the federal government owned company, that is PAAB, Pengurusan Aset Air Berhad, will then go to the bond market to raise funding at a cheaper cost than a private concession that can have to borrow from the bank. And in terms of repayment, they are not tied to this very short-term concession. So we have introduced in Johor, in Malacca, in Negeri Sembilan, Penang, Perak, police signed, but they have not actually implemented it. And I would like to share with all of you that, like in the case of Johor, NRW keep coming down from the day that they signed in 2009 until today. I have the 2 years figures in 2011, 2012, went down from 29.2, now is 27.8, from about 30%. In the case of Malacca, 2011 was 25.1, last year was 23.4. In the case of Negeri Sembilan, it was higher, it was almost 50%, and 2011 was 44.6, now it's down to, last year was 40.4, and this year we hope, we are quite confident it will go down to below 40. And Perak and Penang, Perak was 30.4 and went down to 29.8. Penang has always been very low. It's not because of the asset-light model, because Penang has always been very well managed. So what I want to say is, the restructuring model is only put in place. What we need is to encourage all the state government quickly implement this restructuring model. That is only where the only solution. Your problem of you cannot get enough interruption, cannot get water, is because actually Selangor now reserve margin is less than 1%. It is less than 1%. if there is some problem, like the other day, the Wang Samaju, the suction pump got problem, then the production there is disrupted, the pumping. This is going to continue until we quickly build up the capacity. At the same time, bring down the NRW. I'm perfectly with what Jasani has mentioned, that you have to address NRW at the same time to ensure that you have enough capacity to meet the existing demand. Now, I think the model is in place. Funding cost is the cheapest compared with the government, the concession. But adopting an open tender system, so you do not have to worry that the bloated cost, and quality is being checked by Ministry of Health, except for if this interruption, the one I don't think we can do anything when there is no water supply sundry. Then when supply come back, you can see when you open the tap, it will not be clean. Now, my hope is that this is the International Year of Water Cooperation, and federal state government must cooperate and drive this reform quickly. We are losing a lot of time. I've been in the SPAN for the setup SPAN in the year 2007 with colleagues like he used to be in our commissioner. This has still is our commissioner, and those that have migrated, adopted the asset-light model are beginning to show results. Now, when it comes to tariff setting, I'm not saying that by adopting an asset-light model, you do not need to review the tariff. Water tariff, water revenue in this country, plus Peninsula plus Sabah Sarawak, is only 4.2 billion. It's a thousand. Compare with energy, it's 32 billion. That is only in Peninsula. And you compare with the telecom sector, the revenue is 53 billion. Now, all of us knows, without having me to say this, that we spend a lot of money in communication services. Your mobile phone, your Astro, your broadband, what have you, is all, we pay. But when it comes to water, we always question why water rates have to go up. Now, we realize the fact that this could be the cause of very low willingness to pay, as what Mr. Torrance had mentioned. Why must this cost be so high? Why? Because you do not see that the transparency of it, of water tariff setting. In the past, water tariff has been set by the state government. Now we were forming a SPAN, now we are addressing that. And hopefully by next year, we will be able to put in place a water tariff setting mechanism that is very transparent. That you pay how much, we tell you how much the cost of treatment, how much the cost of distribution, and between treatment, within distribution, we can tell you how much you pay for chemical, how much you pay for electricity, how much you pay for maintenance, and we'll benchmark an efficient cost. And to see that every water operator will impose a KPI, including cost efficiency, customer service, KPI on maintenance, and NRW. Now, this is the plan that we have put in place. What's important is the political commitment by all the by state government and the federal government to be together with us and drive this change. And I think we will actually, a lot of countries is looking at Malaysia, and with that, I think that in terms of water tariff, let us be realistic. That are we spending so much on water? I want to ask every one of you and be very sincere that actually how much you spend on water as compared with the other utilities. Are we being fair to the future generation that we are actually prolonging the infrastructure that is deteriorating, and hopefully when we leave this country, they be the one who bear the brunt? I don't think that is fair. So let us, together be, you can question all those the water costs, and we want to make it very transparent, very consultative, and that is our pledge. We hope that by next year, we'll put in place this tariff setting. We'll make it very transparent. We'll make sure that every operator disclose the money spent and how they use and what revenue that they collect from the water industry. And we'll impose a KPI on everyone before we, But bear in mind that otherwise you are caught in a vicious circle. You don't have enough money, you cannot change the pipe. You cannot change the pipe, you cannot give a good quality of service. Let me ask you that, do you know that there are states who 30 years there was no tariff increase? 30 years. And the cost of manpower, the cost of pipes, the cost of everything has gone up. And the other thing is, you can go and find out whether the water service in these states are the best. They are not. That means that, doesn't mean that you do not revise the tariff. You can ensure that quality is good. The actual cost to the consumers, by having to go and buy mineral waters and the water filters, is actually a hidden cost to them that is not calculated and made known to everyone. Thank you.
Dr. Teo, thanks for bringing up this issue about mineral water and domestic water treatment devices, and also about issue of disclosure. I think consumers are now spending about a few thousand ringgit just to get a domestic treatment device installed at home, and we also know that there is this act being drafted, the Clean Drinking Water, the Safe Drinking Water Act. Now, and also recently there's a report of 9 deaths in Sarawak and also in Kedah because of this leptospirosis, the rat urine disease. And earlier this year we had the acute gastroenteritis, I think in Perak. So with regards to water quality, right, and consumers' perception of the quality of water, now how do you think increased transparency or disclosure about the quality of water being supplied to them may increase acceptance to the potable water that's being supplied to their home, rather than investing in domestic water treatment device or buying bottled water, which has an environmental cost also incurred? So, Dr. Marimutu.
No, I think those days, if you look at when my time of growing, we just book out the pipe, we drink the water. Then eventually, the time government was managing it, then all this privatization came in. So when privatization came in, of course, every company wants to make money. So that's the whole issue. Like you say, like we take our pipes. In Singapore, every 3 years they change the pipes to make sure to cut down the non-revenue water. Ours like 57 years with Tampal. We've been going on and on Tampal. And you look, I'm talking from 1998 in Selangor alone. At that time, you had close to 1+ billion if you change the entire. Today, we're talking about more than 10, 12 years now. We have never doing much for changing of pipes. And have caused a lot of problem. You go to section 17 where I live. You need to wait for 10 minutes before you get clean water. Your pipe is karat. I cannot be changing pipe everywhere on my own. Maybe in my house I can do it. Outside of my house. So the issue is that perception again. People feel that the water quality have gone down, and we go for mineral water, or either we boil our water or whatever we can do. So they're going do all kind of, so the industry have taken an advantage to say that okay, the water in this country is not good, so everyone went for big torpedo. No, you can go every houses got big torpedo. I don't know for what, no cleaning of the water and all that. So it's again a perception. How are we going to change the perception? Is we need, I mean, solid management of water, holistic. That means every company, like in Penang, you can say the non-revenue water been dropping. Now it's 17+%. If you look at all the state, if you want to be a developed nation, I think it must be below 20, your NRW. I don't think that any of our state can achieve except Penang. Because the lowest also was 21 point something in Labuan, I can't remember that. So
Labuan is 20.4.
24.
This is possible.
But
below 15 and below maybe will be tougher depending on the economics of it. Again, you have to look at the economics because you when you replace the pipes.
The thing is you have to fund this the replacement. So and even though some expert will say that NRW doesn't mean replacing pipe, which is true. You also need to ensure that you have active leakage detection team. You must have a district metering zone to ensure that the pressure is well balanced. So that those are the details of NRW. But certain state, I can tell you, some of the pipes is needed to be replaced. To say that we can just introduce ZMZ, you don't have to replace all the pipe is not telling the truth. In the case of states that have migrated, we allowed them every year set aside some budget to replace those pipes that already need to be replaced. Usually to cannot repair anymore. So we are with you lah. The only thing is now I think that that everything is in place. Is only to move forward, and once we complete this tariff setting mechanism, and we SPAN believe that the willingness to pay will be better, because the consumers are consumers. They want to see result. They want to see that and they want to see that that if I pay this money, whether it goes to a proper usage or not, rather than funding some bloated costs and some other not justified expenditures. Yeah.
Dr. Chin, WWF says that the focus of the water service sector is very supply management driven and not water demand management driven. What is the difference and what's the implication? They say that supply management cannot be sustainable in the long run. So what is your?
Well, if you look at one of the things that we have done on the water reform, first thing when they apply for the license is to have a 30-year strategic plan. And in the 30-year strategic plan, they are supposed to project the demand and how they would address on the supply side. So it's very much for the 30-year plan is to look at how the supply can meet up with the demand, and the projection is based on economic growth and the population growth. But what is also more important is back to Engineer Justini's point, it's the consumption of water. Now, if we were to consume water indiscriminately because it's cheap, and that needs to be managed, and that's on the demand side. Because if you do not address that, you will be supplying indefinitely, which cannot happen. So the equation has to happen both on the supply side and the demand side. But if you look at the water service purely as a social service, that's where the problem is. If you look at purely at that, then the equation is very simple, purely a supply side. But if you look at the social side plus the economic side, then you look at the supply side and the demand side. So which is one of the things that in the reform process is that SPAN is a social economic regulator. Now, Ofwat in UK is an economic regulator, and that's a fundamental difference in this. And the issue, I think, stems also from the fact that on the social side, you got the consumers, you got the poor, and you need to address the rural areas. Then on the economic side, there's cost to supply of water, and you need to address where the money is going to come from, who's going to fund it, where is the money, who's going to pay for this. But the problem also begins when you layer on top politics, and that's when the whole issue gets politicized. Now, when that happens, the issue of leaders fighting for the consumers, supposedly, and addressing now in the stage where in the early development time where income is low, it is an issue. But as the country progresses to become more affluent, the issue is not so much about affordability. The issue becomes willingness, and we need to address that. And I think our political leaders need to understand and recognize that difference, that we have progress. And so when you then address that on the supply and the demand side, and similar theory economics, when the supply and demand curve meets, that's where the equilibrium is, and that's where the pricing should be. But because water is a regulated business, we artificially push the price, and that's where the disequilibrium will happen. So what was the implication of that disequilibrium is when we consume water indiscriminately. Because water is cheap. Because when water is cheap, I can afford the wastewater. I can afford NRW. So if I'm a supplier of water, you know what? I'll calculate what you call the economic level of leakage, whereby it's cheaper for me to leak than replace the pipes. So, but if it is expensive and there's an opportunity cost for it because the tariff is sufficiently high, you know what? I will make sure it doesn't leak. So, and I think unless we recognize that economic balance, will continue to treat water not as a scarce resource, but as a resource that we can afford to waste. And that is an issue. Now, on the point that that when we look at water, when we invest in water infrastructure, it's not as simple as I look at the ROI. Because if I purely look at the ROI, I purely look at economics. So if I look at purely ROI, I won't be supplying water in the rural areas. I won't be supplying water to the poor. So you need to address both sides of the equation. And that's where I think the regulator has a balancing role to play, to make sure there's not only in terms of supplying water to everyone and to reach 100% accessibility, but to ensure there's 24-hour supply. We can't do this without the proper tariff and get the reflection of that. So these issues are well embedded in the Water Services Industry Act. In fact, there are 4 aspects inside there. There's the social side of it, there's the economics, there's the consumers, and there's also the technical aspect, and which that balances part of it. And I think the beginning of that process of having that 30-year plan enforces the need to manage that demand and the supply as well, and which is, I think, is something unique in the Malaysian model.
So, just now touching on water quality, okay, and spreading of people buying their own, I call them water treatment plants. Actually, you are running a water treatment plant in your house, yeah, and the danger there is that you are not working on a 24-hour shift, and especially when you go for a holiday and the water treatment plant is stagnant. That's the danger here, because the viruses and the bacteria inside there will multiply. So if you're not careful, it becomes a source of contamination. Yeah, that's why you must follow the manufacturer's recommendation diligently, which I doubt. Correct? Yeah. So the problem here, as in Penang, because we were one of the pioneers of high-rise buildings in Malaysia. Okay, and this is a common problem. And here, I think Dr. Chin, Dr. Teo, when we were doing the restructuring, we did mention to cover the after meter position legislation, which was left out. Yeah, in Malaysia, after meter position responsibility is a twilight zone, because we haven't got our Strata Act, our management legislation, so nobody is really responsible, because the water operator under the Act is responsible up to the meter position. Beyond the meter position is anybody's. Yeah, and that is why you find sometimes reports somebody drowning in the roof tank. Yeah, because that roof tank has never been cleaned since it was installed, because the management didn't clean it. So in Malaysia, that is the situation. So we need to have a law. Yeah, and again, kesianlah, our neighbor has done it. In Singapore, they have a code of practice, a law, where the owner or the management of the building is responsible, and there is a yearly inspection by the inspectorate. In Malaysia, none. So if you are having property in a high-rise apartment, okay, then bad luck, because nobody is cleaning the roof tank. So that's why you need to install the water filters, and nobody is really checking whether the pipes are replaced. You know, you have all sorts of problem. The individual apartments don't want to pay to the management. Usual story lah, kan? And sometimes you hear in the news, TMB going cut supply to the whole apartment. Yeah, and then the politicians have to come in. Yeah, so that is going to become more and more, especially in urban towns where having a lot of high-rise building, and that is one of the biggest source of water quality problems in urban areas. So we need to have legislation, because now nobody is taking care of the internal reticulation system, and that is why every apartment is installing water filters, because they can't help it. The roof tank is not being cleaned. If you don't believe, how many of you live in a high-rise building? You go back, you try and see your roof tank, then you won't drink your water. It's never inspected, never cleaned, because there's no law, unless the management themselves took it upon them. So right now there is no law, and if you don't do it, you are not penalized until something happens. Sad lah kan? Prof? Maybe you can comment.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Jasni. Now, these high-rise tanks, actually, like what Engineer Jasni says, is not regulated. So, it all boils down to the individual's responsibility and how much you care about it. So the residents actually, they have their committees, and they should be the ones who actually direct the management to do the cleaning and do the checking. So, which brings me to my main point here. For me, I think we have not looked at the most serious problem that is affecting our water supply and water resources in Malaysia, which is going back to that water supply and water demand thing. We are only looking at supplying people with water. All this while, we talk about water demand, but it's never really regulated or implemented, you know, on a very strong basis. It's just piecemeal. Every time we come to, you know, meetings like this, we talk about it. There are some piecemeal, you know, people in Penang or Selangor, they're doing some business here and there. But it's not as much as a well-planned water supply sort of, you know, sort of a management sort of thing. It is just piecemeal, which means we are not actually engaging the public. We are not engaging the consumers. Consumers, I don't mean just domestic. I mean hotels. I mean factories. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think in Penang we have some hotels that use more water than a small town, right? So Angie Jaspi would testify to that. And these hotels do not put in recycling plants. Why? For the simple reason the water is so cheap. They make the calculations. It takes me 20 years, Dr. Chin, to recover my cost. No way they are going to put in the recycling plant. No way they're going to do anything about recycling of the water rather than just use the PBA water. And PBA being supplying 24 hours is no problem for them. That factory as well. And I'm also talking about big consumers like schools, universities. Let's not mention which university. But most universities use a lot of water. A lot of water because staff don't pay, students don't pay, visitors don't pay, only the VC pays. So that's why we have a campaign, or we have a project whereby we are
VC pays, so not his money.
Yeah, also not his money. So we have a project, coming up, with PBA and USM. We are going to sign MOU to do water saving and to see which areas in the campus that we can reduce water. So my main point here is we need to emphasize more on water demand management with all the big water consumers as well as domestic. Otherwise, you don't solve the problem. I think Dr. Chin is going to talk about it, but let me finish first. Because you can have all the best infrastructure, you can have, everything, but when people don't cooperate with you, they waste the water, it goes down to zero. You have huge campaigns, and then Penang water still going up 294, which is twice the Singapore one. If we can only reduce this to the Singapore rate, we solve all our problems already. For 10 years, 20 years, no need to have another new dam, maybe for 10 years. So if Malaysians, we are using 230 per person, reduce it to Singapore's level, we don't need to talk about water anymore, no more problems. We would have shifted the equation 10 years down the line. No more dams for 10 years. We can reserve it for the future generation. But we don't. We are just telling people to supply. Which means, I give you an analogy. If you have a child and you are a millionaire, you say, son, come here, $1 million, give you, take and spend. Tomorrow he will come back, daddy, give me another $1 million. I just gave you $1 million yesterday, but daddy, expensive things nowadays, I just bought one Ferrari, habis lah. Tomorrow I want to buy a Lamborghini. So you don't tell the fellow how to use his money, how to save, how to, and that's the way it is with water. We don't tell consumers how to save. And that's how people keep on wasting the water. And our tariffs is connected to this. It's a big cause of public liability is because of the tariff. It's just too low. Nobody's going to save any water when you have this sort of tariff. I'm only paying 5 ringgit just now. Go and check my bill. 5 ringgit for 2 months, No way. In fact, actually, I calculated I'm supposed to pay 350 based on the water I consume, which 175 per month for the whole family. That's how cheap water is in Penang. So how can you tell anybody like me to save water? You would think I'm crazy. I keep telling people and they look at you. Oh, are you sure you're a professor in university? Simple mathematics you don't know. Tell me to save water. So it's a really big problem. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Actually, whatever education we do, whatever conservation program we have, unless you address the tariff issue, to my mind, I think you're just tinkering the problem. We won't be able to solve the problem at all. I've seen a lot of the programs, models around the world. Without addressing tariff, the rest are superfluous. They will only do programs on conservation water as a supplement to the tariff, not the other way around. I think, when I was a young student of economics, and one of my economics professors, the first principle of economics, the first assumption is man is insatiable. That's the first thing you must understand. They say that. Basically, see, why does economic, why is there demand? Basically, men are greedy. That's what it is. So you need to have goods and services to satisfy people. And that's why there's demand. But when and you look and you draw the demand curve, obviously demand increases when the prices goes down. Now imagine that you have a situation where it's so cheap. Obviously I've got infinite resources at my disposal. So we must understand that demand curve, and that's, unfortunately, we artificially drive the price down so low that it just doesn't make sense. You can tell me till the cows come home, it's extremely difficult for you to convince me to save water. I have a banker friend in Penang, for your information. He's paying the same rate as you do. He's an investment banker, and that's what he's paying. And each time I go to Penang, I say, are you going to increase my tariff? I say, you're just paying too low. So, and these are issues. It's not, so the issue, and I think that's where we need to understand, unfortunately, when issues get politicized, the issue is not about affordability. We can afford. Now, granted, there could be a segment of the society may be a burden to them when they increase the tariff. But let's address them separately. But we do not find a solution on the tariff to address the whole population when the issue is with the small segment of the population. And this way, the whole tariff setting model, we will balance the social side of that.
Dr. Chin, I mean, based on the comments from all the panelists, it falls back on educating the consumers, making them understand why they have to pay and what are the costs involved and all that. So, do you think that is now, there's a big gap in engaging with consumers, educating them about what is involved in, you know, setting tariff and all that? Do you think more need to be done, more resources to be put in to educate consumers in that respect?
I think that's a very good question. One of the things that we did in 2004, when we engaged with the consumer groups, one of the toughest consumer groups to engage with Dato Mari Mutu, you know, at that time. We quarrel, become enemies, but we become friends today. Now, the issue was this. There is no question that you ask some, let's say 10 consumers, almost 10 of them say they will not want a tariff increase. Okay. But when you drive down the next question as to why do you not want a tariff increase, it's very simple. The answer is that I don't know what I'm paying. Am I paying for bloated capex? Am I paying for bloated OPEX? Where does it go to? What about the service levels? I'm not happy. When I turn my tap on, I don't get clean water. And so therefore the issue is the consumers saying that I'm willing to pay provided you give me the service, and I need to understand what I'm paying for. So therefore, in the whole tariff setting process, we need to address these things. So how did the education process has to go? So to my mind, I think there must be a transparent engagement between the suppliers, the regulator, and the consumers. So in the tariff setting process, now you look at a regulated industry like water. How do you set a tariff? It's basically cost plus a profit margin. So it's essentially, tariff setting is a cost plus model. But the fallacy of a cost plus model is it encourages you to be inefficient. Why? Because the higher my costs, the higher profit I make. So that's the paradox of that cost plus model. So in the tariff setting, what we need then to do is that how do we then have a tariff setting model? We can't run away a cost plus model. So how do we then have a cost plus model that says that we do not cost in that inefficiency or the bloated costs? And that we have to do that through two filters. One is, what is the regulated or the qualifying costs? Okay, and I think that's the first thing we need to look at. Secondly is what Dr. Chiu say, the benchmark cost. We need to benchmark, right? So benchmarking could be local, and we can progress on to compare with the operations in the region or internationally. So these parameters that we can set, and so long as the consumers then understand that this filtration of that cost elements are being done, the consumers then say, yeah, you educate me, I understand how you set this cost, you disclose to me this information, and I think that's where I think the consumers have to play a very important role to engage with the regulator as well as the water suppliers to address that. And what Dr. Teo was also saying is that this information will be then be disclosed. Now imagine then going fast forward, imagine now you've got a league table of all the suppliers in the country, and suddenly you put Penang figures up compared to all the other states. Then we question why is it that Penang can do it at that cost, and why can't you? So the consumers then will then understand. Now obviously the costs cannot be the same from one state to another. There will be discrepancy, right? Because the topographical profile of the terrain of the land and distribution costs will be different. I mean, the land size of the state will be different, so there will be disparity. Service level could be different from one state to the other state, but the disparity actually, so long as you can then explain where the disparity comes from, and that's where the regulator will play a very important role. That education process and that engagement will give a would help to converge the consumers, regulator, and suppliers together.
So that strengthens my point that before you review the tariff, the water operator must achieve operational excellence. Because as Dr. Chin say, if you use cost plus, if you are not efficient, then the consumers are going to pay more. So where is the benchmark? So for those water operators who haven't reached operational excellence, they have to accelerate to achieve that operational excellence, because the consumer, once they are hit with the increase in tariff, tomorrow they want that level of service, not how many years later. That is the problem here. So to me, in Malaysia, the main problem here, before you review the tariff, is to get everybody to achieve their operational excellence. Okay, then we can convince the consumer. We walk them along, yeah. And then, for instance, in Tokyo, they have reached a level. The consumer is so sophisticated in Tokyo. For your information, Tokyo NRW is 3.5%, one of the lowest in the world, humanly possible. When they are able to reduce, you know what the town council tells them? Don't raise your water tariff. The gains that you get from NRW lowering, you lower your rates. Even in UK also, they are on that trend. Increased efficiency resulting in reduction in rates. So they are at the other end of the curve, Dr. Chin. We are on this end of the curve. So that's why the consumer being more educated, more informed, and then just like in the elections, you got generation, what now? Generation Z. Z, you know. Z, So these are who? Children playing iPads, you know. Okay? So they want transparency, you know. They can calculate anything. You say this figure, they can go and Google, and then they can calculate themselves. I mean, basically, you cannot bullshit them, lah. Basically, Okay?
Dr. Engineer Kadir, before we open for one last round of questions from the participants, there have been some talks or suggestions that you join billing of sanitation and water. What is your take on that? I mean, do you think it's feasible? Is it easier for you to recover your costs?
I'm listening with interest because people forgot that they have a toilet in the house. Which without a toilet they cannot live. I have not heard of people being chased out of the house because the toilet is not working. So if an indicator for the consumer, they have their own small plant, my indicator that nobody has been chased out of the house because the toilet is not overflowing. Because once the toilet overflow, you can close the door, but you cannot close the smell. As such, if your house costs even 3 million, you will not stay in the house. So that's how important is sewerage, which all the discussion been evolving. They forgot about tariff of sewerage, which individually the connected customer, I call it customer, they don't consume. So customer, they're paying about 27 cents a day, 8 ringgit a month, regardless whether we found out, we just discussed recently with Dr. Teo, the low cost house, they pay 2 ringgit and they consume water more than the factory because they put people on shift, 20 people around the clock. These 20 people comes in, goes out, then the next 20 comes in, and they share the same bed. And they're paying 2 ringgit of sewerage charge, cost of low cost. And not alone the water consumer. If it's in Penang, they do it that manner. These people is gaining. So on our side, there's been a lot of discussion. People ask me, what can you do in order to let people pay for the services? Because in water, you don't pay, they cut. That's why you have about more than 90% collection. Electricity, the same thing. So they ask me, why don't I do the same? I can, but I think it will be miserable for everybody. So on humanitarian ground, I'm not doing it. Although jokingly, I used to say to Dr. Teo, best to choke your system and see how you behave now. Whether the 27 cents a day or 8 ringgit is worth the cost of your house. I'm sure most of the house, even the low cost, is 25,000. It's more than 8 ringgit, 100 ringgit per month, or 100 ringgit a year, or 96 ringgit. And 5 years is only 500. Compared to your Astro, I'm sure you have Astro, when the football season comes in, put extra more than 100 ringgit. I'm sure most of us here, minimum 1, if not 2 or 3 or 4 phones that you have, and that will cost you about 500 ringgit easily a month. And for those ladies who go to pedicure, all these things, cleaning up your nails and makeup costs you more, but you forgot about the factor of waterborne disease. So these are the things that people take for granted. Why? As what I just quote what the director of SPAN say to me, it's because you are too efficient. When you are too efficient, people forget about you. Because they live comfortably. The complaints that what we receive outside the house, where it overflows. I'm with Justini, saying that old pipes. Now recently in Penang, I found out 30 years. Dr. Teo, I just found out the investigation. Our concrete pipe became to corrode because of hydrogen sulfide, and the pipe, concrete pipe. I'm not talking vitrified clay pipes, because above 450 we use concrete pipe, and the pipe start deteriorating. And there's a cost, huge cost, especially in Yutong area. And so, coming back to this one, you strike the magic word about marriage, because in water restructuring, maybe Dr. Chin have not mentioned that, but the model of water roadmap is for the water and the sewerage too much, and that's why the other model, the negotiation with the state is for the state to own the water company, and that water company, water includes sewerage. But I think we are not ready to get married now, because if I get married with Justin today, he become poorer, because I have to do due diligence, right? So coming back to the collection, our revenue is the lowest. If you talk about your water sector in terms of banking, mine is lowest of the lowest, because we collect about 400 to 500 million a year. And our operation cost, I think by next few years, is going to become billions, 1 billion. As of today, government have subsidized, because of this deficiency, more than 1 billion. Because we cannot collect. People refuse to pay, and because the act is in such a way that I cannot, as I say, I'm not going to do that to choke the system. So coming back to the joint billing, that's an ideal situation. We are talking about it. In fact, we have discussed with some states, including Penang, Johor, and also Selangor. But we will move into that direction in the near future. But of course, in close discussion with SPAN and the government, what is the best way forward, because it's not a question of affordability, it's about transparency. People want to know how they pay. If you look, those who have been to Philippines, if you look at this billing or the bill from Philippines, they show the consumer of the rate of usage, how much you consume last month. Then the consumer can monitor. So for us, I hope that the is okay when I say this. It's my personal thing. For transparency, if you don't consume, there's no discharge. So it's closely related. Water and sewage, you cannot separate it. So that means when you consume, you have to go to the toilet, definitely. The problems with water sectors, yes, for drinking, but how much can you consume? Large percentage of water usage is for cleaning. So if you have a water rationing of you, then don't have water. The first person in the house going to use the small room, come out smiling. The second, third person will come out cursing. Because why? They cannot clean. So the weakest percentage is cleaning, and that cleaning portion all goes into sewerage. And to get people paid. So there is a relationship of water usage. But of course, it's not 100% that goes into the sewerage. If you use bylaw currently, as I used to say, strictly speaking, only the rainwater that goes into the drain. So if you educate that portion, our river will be crystal clear. You won't see any more teh tarik, Nescafe, Milo in the Klang River. Sad to say, and we've been living that situation for a long time. So the question of joint billing is about getting the agreement from the water operators. Of course, being poor in the area, the water operator will take advantage of IWK. They will charge us for using their services, because, but to me, it's a win-win situation. It will give advantage to the consumer, because instead of one person, in fact, for that matter to say, we have 3 services that visit the house. Maybe IWK don't visit. 2. If you want to put 3 is the gas, but gas is very minimum. Water and electricity goes to the house to read the meter. One person can do the job, to read both. It just matter about how you work closely with each other, and the benefits or whatever saving goes back to the consumer. That's my belief. So for sewerage is concerned, in order to reduce this, it's best that we have a joint billing, because if you look at the water consumption, we cannot be assuming. It must be a real water consumed, and that real water consumed database comes from the water operators. As such, this needs to be together, and I hope in the future when we touch on this matter of tariff, it should be joint billing. If not on their tariff, we should be clear on what we do and what we charge. That's what Dr. Teo say. The public want to know what you do, because people ask me, what are we paying for? So I ask them, every day you go to the toilet, where do you think the water goes? So the 2 portion, I give analogy. If in engineering we talk about 225 liter per capita per day, that's the basic design. Let's say I take 100 consumed, 100 only being consumed, that will goes into the sewage system. So in the population equivalent of a house, one house is 5%. So 5% multiplied by 100, that means you are discharging about 500 liters a day. And if you do about 500 liters a day, this one water, 0.5, half liter. And we talk about 500 liters that goes out of the house. If you were to use a lorry, does that cost you 27 cents? If you can, so live with it, don't ask IWK, sign a contract, then choke your system, you go, but don't discharge into the river or drain. But 500 liters that goes out of the house, that is cost of what I say, transportation. And that transportation equivalent to my conveyance system. If they have NRW, I got illegal discharge into my sewage system, because you don't pay, you discharge. And this is investment cost that government has put in for your convenience. You know? And it goes into a treatment plant. And that's the next process of taking care of environment. This is the subject of the day, is environment. How you protect the environment. That's how you turn the black or chocolate into water. Crystal clear. That goes into the river so that we don't pollute. So of course there are standards, and DOE is increasing the standards in year 2016 in 2 phases and 2019, and we must be ready. Currently IWK still inherited a lot of plants before our time, and quite a large amount, and yet you talk about achieving an industrialized country by 2020, and we're still having pond flush, we're still having oxidation pond. People say, why my house is in front of this oscillation point? I say, when you pay, last time before allocate to avoid, the plant is there. You don't, maybe at that point of time, people do not know that that pond is sewerage. So when they buy, now they open up the window, they can see. What we accommodate, we put this brick wall just to cover their views, and that is the thing that we have to look at. So they got to know what they pay for. So two components, as I say, one component is for transportation. Instead of lorries, we convert it into conveyance pipe. The other portion is treatment, so that you get a good quality water, river water, and then this goes back to a cycle where if it's upstream of the water intake, the DOA impose a standard A. If downstream of water intake is standard B, and it be abstracted by the water operators for drinking purposes.
Thank you, Engineer Kadir. We can take a question from the participants. Yes.
So normally, my PhD student, when they come over, they ask, you show me something. The water, treated water is clean. I say, you say clean. So how about the pollutants parameters? So I agree with this Dr. Teo. He's saying that we need to show the cost and operation cost, this chemical cost. But how about the treated water? For this IWK treatment plant, so the treated water, if can show that before and after, I think will be more convincing. Or I think we are more willing, more happy to pay for the field. This is my suggestion. In order to fulfill all the requirements, because currently I'm doing this MBR system using the membrane to treat the wastewater. And when I was doing my PhD over in Singapore, I heard from Lee Kuan Yew saying that now water is not a safety issue. Why? Because got technology, which is membrane. So since we are moving towards 2020, and just wonder, do you going to use this membrane for your industry, water industry? Thank you.
Question is membrane technology.
When everyone talks about water tariff or electricity tariff, as far as concerned, it's always a very highly debatable issue. It's depending on which anchor you're looking at, in which party you're looking at. I think there's one thing that I like to propose is that I think we have overlooked is that tax rebate, tax incentive, in terms of those people that have achieved those benchmarks that we set, is much better than just an obvious convince people telling me this is how much I do, that is how much I do. That takes a long time. The tax rebates, if you start a benchmark, if you think water usage per person in a house, you got how many people, or rather you want to go by per house, let's say they are met a certain benchmark, they can ask a certain rebate, tax rebate from, I think Chin will be in better in that, right? That will be very much easier to launch. We buy mobile phone, we buy this, hospital thing, we got all these rebates. Why not? These are the awareness they can always bring it in, and it's immediate. Now, the second thing I want to highlight with this, talking about what sustainability of water, particularly on the IWK side, is that a lot of this green, because I happen to be very active in the green council as well, is that they are very, very interested in all this rainwater harvesting, grace, recycling, all these things. You see, those are very expensive things, and it is there. Developer like it so much, right? They are not talking about the first R. They always talk about the last R, because that's where all the monies go. Right? So looking at that, we are swinging two sides of the pendulum. Now, the only thing I can think of is the tax rebate, that we can give, and this awareness. Oh, I've saved, so I get some tax rebate from there, and that's where the revenue can be collected from there. Why you put it? I think this is highly debatable. Thank you.
I'm Ong. I think I met Majasni also in Mosti. And then I've been involved in, I'm actually from SMI Association. Looking from the consumer, layman consumer point of view, because I'm involved with the government agencies as well as consumers, as well being a conservationist. I'm also the MNS. And tomorrow, I think this Sunday, will be the Earth Day coming in this month. We found that environmental is everybody's responsibility. It's not only being the panels here or the agency here, but it is the everybody's, especially in Malaysia. Apart from we population, we call it the mass population in Malaysia, but we have also immigrants coming in as foreign workers and so on. There are a lot of angles we have to look into. But from a layman point of view, most of them do not know how much they pay for each liter of water. For we always say to our grandchildren, or maybe our children, like Chinese saying, say, "Lei sik mai mji mai ka." That means you are taking rice, but you don't know what is the price of rice. So I'm being staying in a semi house. I do not have to pay my water bills for so many years. There are a lot of people who are asking why. I'm involved in RA, Resident Association. You find the responsibility of a resident association today, prime is security. But the rest of the thing is not important. Just education, simple education in Malaysia is for the children to throw rubbish. There's no education saying pick up the rubbish and throw into the proper place for recycling and reducing the waste. This has not been done long time. Probably I'm from the north. In 1960, Penang is the most expensive water. And you can just open the tap, the Penang Air Dam, you can just drink it, you have no problem. But being in Kedah, be different. The consumer that Penang water is always cleaner than Kedah water. So you look at the whole holistic. The problem that our Malaysian agencies are not working together. Sad to say, even up to today, the 6 or maybe 26 agencies in Malaysia are not coordinating. Do you know what's the reason why? Each has its own KPI. I want to show that I do better than PBA. That's good, it's competitiveness. But there must be a, we call it a governance body. Like for example, suggested that our panelists just now, there will be only one ministry taking care of the rest. I'm involved in the green tech. MIDI set up green tech. MIDA set up green tech. DOE got green tech. Even CRIM has green tech. I have been attend meetings after meetings. I think the last I met was just in the Mosti. Our chairman has said, don't come here and spend your time having lunch and go back and forget about it. This is the whole problem in our organization. I wouldn't say organization, it's the Malaysian government. Political will is not there. Being in opposition or being the government, the political view is not strong. I always believe it's more for less, more from less for more. This is the MLM, probably a lot of people is multi-level marketing. It should be more from less for more. With the agencies you have today, I suggest that look into this. The technologies today and the conservation we have today. more from less for more. Thank you.
One last question.
Thank you very much. Name is Augustine from Green Purchasing Network. I know the upstream problem is too much to handle for me. I want to go down to the downstream, which I think even engineer just said, maybe recycling later, but I think we have to do it now actually. It's a very important aspect of water generation actually. IWK has their own sets of problems. But if you look at resource recovery actually, I will go along for that because you can get very good clean water out of IWK, even below 10 BOD, using very cheap, simple technology. But at the same time, the solids can be used for another resource. We're actually working on solids now, solids from all the different parts of waste. For fuel actually, I'm actually asked to generate fuel for a big plant actually, somewhere up north. And we are looking at using IWK and different kinds of food waste to actually generate the fuel. And there are technologies there to do that. And in terms of the calorific value, you can go up to 5,000-6,000, which is good for the plants actually to generate. So if you look from that economic point of view, I think then the IWK cost can actually come down. And we are losing maybe not enough money collected, but that portion actually can be generated through the recovery side actually. So I would say that look more into recovery. I think resource recovery is the in thing now. We are working down this line in Japan, even in China now. We are actually integrating the animal waste, the human waste for biogas, for another kind of fuel, actually solid fuels, and for actually, it's very clean actually, and technology is there, and it's not necessary to be very expensive. Thank you.
So, one round of comments from all our panelists before we close. Engineer Justin.
Okay, thank you. So I think we want to wrap it up, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe to like recycling, as I mentioned, if you produce a product and somebody is able to sell another product at a cost higher, naturally nobody will be interested. So in Penang, if you want to recycle or you want to rain harvest, it's a no-go because you cannot beat my price. And if I want to tell the factories to recycle also, they say you are nuts, unless my water is at a higher price. So it goes on that basis lah. Not that we don't want to promote recycle, but currently at this price it's not viable. At the end of the day, no matter how much IWK is able to produce, at the end of the day, what is the cost per cubic meter? Your end product is water. So PBA, PP also produces water. So people will compare to that price. Unless you recycle and the cost of your water is cheaper than my water, then of course people will be very interested. Yeah. Okay. Now then I think Datuk Kadir did mention we actually must be able to reduce costs, and one way is we have too many agencies. In other countries, what they did is they understood the water cycle. Yeah, so they understood the water cycle. That's why they put the irrigation, the water supply, and sewerage under one minister. They call it the water minister. Yeah, and in most developed countries and also developed Asian countries, they do that. So you don't have repeating departments like my friend there said. It's true. If you have one minister, you cut down the cost by 3. Right now you got 3 agencies and 2 ministers, and we cannot see eye to eye even to solve the sludge problem from the treatment plants. Okay, so one minister to take care of the water cycle is the road, the future road lah, not currently. The next issue on the, again on this reducing cost, is the integrated water resource management. I understand we are coming out with a book, but it has taken a long time. So that should be the basis for future water supply planning, because water supply is by basin. It's not by state boundaries. Yeah, you should go by basin. Yeah? Because if you don't do that, then each state will build their own treatment plant. Each state will build their own dams. Whereas you could combine it and develop one system for several states. Again, economies of scale, and that will reduce the cost. Yeah. Again, this is long term lah. Because you have, first you have to have a mindset to take the helicopter view, yeah, of things. Because right now, this state wants to build a treatment plant, this state wants to do this, they do repeating. Padahal you can build one plant and serve several states. Yeah, then you can achieve economies of scale, and then you can keep down the cost. And the other issue is about integration of water supply and sewerage. Yes, that should be the intermediate plan. Right now, his parents and my parents are whispering we're supposed to get married. Now, I and Kadir lah, IWK, we were married before and we were divorced. Now we are being rujuk kembali, Kadir? Because we had problems when we combined the billing. But that is the way to go. Like the one I told you about the water cycle. Yeah, water services and sewerage must be combined. Okay, for efficient management. Yeah. So the problem is both families have to solve their internal problems first, or somebody comes in that can take out the problems and then get these two parties to be integrated. Yeah. Okay, so we are talking to IWK. That should be the line. And finally, at the end of the day, one of the, if you cannot educate people, what do? You force them. It can be draconian. How do you do that? You make it into law for people to use water saving devices. Okay? And see how the public react. In some countries, they make it voluntary. You know, they got this labeling 5-star, 4-star, 3-star. It's voluntary. So you go to the supermarket, you want to buy a refrigerator, you got a 5-star, you got 4-star, up to you. But no star, tak boleh lah. But other star. So you want to spend more, it's up to you. But some people, for fittings and all that, they say you can only use this fitting. So again, the society have to decide that lah. Because that's one of the way that we can reduce water consumption. If you cannot change people's habit, then you design something lah. But then, if you don't make it mandatory, it has pros and cons. Yeah. So you can do it mandatory after you legislate it and use the local authorities to implement it for new projects. Yeah. That's a start lah. Because that's one way to reduce water consumption. Yeah. And then of course just now Penang we have introduced the water conservation surcharge. That is to stay, because even if you review the tariff, people who use above that level must be told to pay more. Okay? Thank you.
Dr. Mar. Oh, okay. Oh yes, there was a question about the membrane technology.
Same lah. Same answer to recycle. If you, I mean you are in Penang lah. No lah. I give you example lah. The first thing they ask you, how much is your cost per meter cube? Simple. Before you start your project. If you cannot make it cheaper than mine, sorry. No, you see, the public wants a certain quality. The high quality you are talking about will be factories. That means you are talking about super water. That's different. No, but anything, at the end of the day, your product is water, right? Then the people will ask, what is your cost per meter cube? That's the bottom line. If your technology does not make it cheaper, you're going to have a long time. Unless, like I told you, in Singapore, their water rates is up. Then things become viable. Yeah.
That's all.
Two things. The first thing is that for IWKs, no, I think you don't repeat the 1996 issue, joint billing. So you must create the people, then create the product. That means you educate the Rayat, okay, on the joint billing, the purpose and everything. Then you come out with the billing. If not, in 1996, you know, more than 60-70% refuse to pay. And FOMCA is the one who spearhead for the billing. We say, why should we pay for things when we can't see? So you need to be careful when you're handling this time around, because you know you all have spent even for the separate billing those days into millions with one particular accounting firm, not yours, okay? So you okay, okay, that's one. The other thing is that for the layman consumers, what they want is simple. Buka pipe, air mengalir, itu saja. You are not going to go into many technology, tu semua. So this is what the government had to do lah. End of the day, the government or the operator, whoever, I think SPAN had to do lah. SPAN had to do many things. We are part of SPAN. We are doing many things, trying to educate everyone. Plumber, then come back to those who are selling some product. Also, we are now trying to regulate them and everything. But the most important thing is that I think so. The federal government had to come up, had to be more serious on this matter, because I think this is a time that we cannot take things for granted. You see, we need to think something like 50 years, 100 years water demand management. We can't be just doing like tomorrow we are putting up a housing scheme of 2,000 housing scheme. I mean 2,000 houses somewhere. Then we thought about, okay, these people need water. We need to have for 50 to 100 years like our neighbor. Without water today they are hub for the whole Asia. Then we talk about talent corporation. All Malaysians are working there. Those who created the new water is a Malaysian. It's not an outsider. And she's winning, award winning throughout the world. So we need to be serious about many things. So that's the thing which I urge all the parties, especially SPAN, let it be Pengurusan Asset, all the state governments, they need to really take it. This is no more issue of you can delay, especially sewerage. People need to understand. I think the people are understanding you are getting reasonably better collection these days, reasonably better collection. I never say you achieve 100%. Okay, reasonably better collection, because people know the importance of sewerage. But for consumers at large, is that end of the day we want to make sure that it's affordable, safe, and accessibility always. That's what we want. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think what I want to say is, if policy impacts on people and decision affects the country. Now, there are some policy issues which has been addressed just now and highlighted. So, you know, definitely I think if there is that all the agencies are put under the same ministry, definitely it will facilitate The other one I want to touch is on that. I totally agree that they should be focused on demand side management instead of just only on the supply side. For SPAN, I think you know that we have just introduced in April that water efficient product labeling scheme for water taps and also water closets. We have started it with a voluntary basis. You go to our website today, you'll be able to see that. And from there on, I think it will be made mandatory. We will start with a voluntary basis. The good thing of this is that now the buy-in is there. A lot of suppliers are coming in. And once we take away the products of those not efficient, naturally the consumers will not have access to the inefficient products. So by itself, you know, there is no other choice except for consumers to buy those efficient. The industry is going through a tremendous changes and transformation. I think you know that compared with pre 2008, and you know, when water supply was under the state purview, now it is the policy aspect, the regulatory aspect, the legal aspect is being now under the federal government. And I have highlighted, the framework that has been put in place, the initiative that I have, undertaken by the government and also the regulator. Personally, I'm confident that we should be able to address the challenges in a more effective manner moving forward. But the support will have to come from all, and not only the ministry or the regulator or the supplier or the service provider. Consumers do play a very important role, and I hope that when we meet again sometime in the future, we will all be able to showcase some of the improvements that have been done in this sector. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought before I wrapped up, I just touch on the points, some of the questions that were raised on the transparency of costs. Obviously, that would apply to both water and wastewater as well in the process of tariff setting. Tariff, why don't we just give tax incentive or tax rebates for efficiency? But the problem with the industry is that there's no profit to be made at the moment, so tax rebate, tax incentive is meaningless to all these players. They're not getting any loans from the federal government now, so the issue doesn't apply. So they are very much on their own. They've been ring-fenced. See, after following the water reform, they've all been ring-fenced.
Example I can see is that the local association in MPPJ, they're starting something like this. But I think they somehow give some incentive back. I think it will work. That's the way I'm trying to say. There's a resident association in PJ.
You see, tax incentive, tax rebate under the federal government system is a federal revenue. They are a state company. So we basically ask the federal government to subsidize a bucket to the state government. I don't think that's going to work.
Is more on your water efficient
yes.
Products and what. You are not looking at the overall.
I think he's referring to being an efficient operator.
It can be in many corners. What I'm trying to say is that, for example, in MPPJ, I can understand that if they have put what you call show a saving or a certain percentage, then they can give it some kind of tax rebate. I didn't really bother because it's so minimal.
In what sense? You mean usage of water or what? What is it? In production or supply of water or what?
In both. No, in our MPPJ. Green?
Green.
Oh, okay.
In green.
Okay. But it can be that way. I mean, if it's that.
Okay, let's look at the two angles.
The ultimate theme is to get the awareness out there, right? So because if you are not putting something in where everybody can access, like tax rebate, right? Practically everyone don't care, because awareness of water conservation is not there. That's the whole thing. It's a whole the whole room of people are very interested only.
The point I'm trying to make is, at the moment, the most effective way I see is through tariff. Unless you address the tariff, water is practically free. Whatever awareness you make to me is meaningless. Tax incentive is meaningless to a lot of the water players, maybe with the exception of Penang and Perak. The rest are hardly making anything, so they're making losses. To the consumers, I'm not hardly paying for water anyway. What tax rebate I'm going to get? But anyway, I think something to look at. On the point that was being touched upon, the stakeholders not working together, I think that there is an issue. But in the water reform process, it's been very clearly set up that actually one of the things that actually, whilst the model was actually conceptualized in the end of 2004, do you notice that the bill was not even passed until June 2006? The reason was because they were engaging with all the stakeholders. I still remember we conducted nearly 60 workshops to engage World Wildlife Fund, Malaysian Nature Society, consumer groups, and all the interested parties, industry players, bankers, financiers, foreign locals. So that engagement process did take place to conceptualize before the bills were passed in Parliament. And also, one of the main things that as part of the model is the formalization of this Form I. And as part of the process to engage stakeholders, I think this, hopefully, I think Forum I will make this platform grow bigger and get all the interest parties to be involved. Now, so to wrap up, the issue I mean, if you look at and summarize all the challenges we're facing right now, I would say 90% of the things we discussed this morning centers and ends up with a tariff issue. Whether it's recycling, whether it's conservation, whether it's standard of water supply, interruption of water supply, and everything else, it ends up with the tariff. So, and to me, I think the most important thing, we need to address that issue, and I'm glad that certainly SPAN is looking at a tariff setting. So, but what's in store for us in the future? You know, one of the things that I've done 80% of, I'm a consultant, and 80% of my work is that I do a lot of consultation work with the government. I must say that this water project is probably the most interesting, and the people that I've been dealing with, the people of caliber. So I have a lot of confidence on the success of this roadmap. This roadmap has been mapped for the next 30 years. You know, when I engage, you know, one of the things that I have to do a reality check in what I do is I do a reality check with my officers overseas. I do a reality check with what is being done overseas. So I sit in the subcommittee of the International Water Association, and you know that 90% of the people I speak to were really amazed when you explain to them the roadmap that we are taking. So therefore, and to a certain extent, I'm very clear that the roadmap actually leapfrog us in front to a lot of countries, provided we can achieve that. But we cannot achieve all these things without the consumers. That is very clear. So the engagement of the stakeholders is extremely important. Now, I think the biggest issue, the biggest challenge to my mind in the roadmap, I don't think it's the regulator. I don't think it's the water suppliers. I think it's the politics. To me, it's the biggest stumbling block. I don't think the regulator can address that. I don't think the water suppliers can address that. The only people who can address this thing are the consumers. So I think the consumers have got to play an extremely important role to get the message across both sides of the political divide that this is not about politics, this is about the consumers, and we need to address this issue. The now with the roadmap being set up, because you see, every operator that migrates to the new regime have to give a 30-year roadmap towards full cost sustainability. So it's very clear, you know, that they will achieve that. They have a roadmap, otherwise they can't even get a license to operate. And every 3 years, they have to submit a business plan to show efficiency. So it's not a thing that I just submit my 30-year plan and that's the end of the matter. And the 30-year plan have to deal with the demand and the supply side. And every 3 years, they have to submit they have to submit a 3-year rolling plan to the regulator. How are they going to achieve? So they set a magnifying glass on the 30-year plan, and every year, how they're going to achieve that KPI, whether it's NRW, whether it's customer service and everything else. So those paths are very, very clear. And I think at the same time, I think the consumer group has to play a very important part to actually address this issue, to put pressure on it, and actually relate what is required. But at the same time, you can't have demand all these things without cost. And that has to be recognized. Okay, thank you.
Okay, on my part, just to touch on Mr. Ng from UNITA, actually, we have been regulated. So talk about the effluent quality before and after. We have two regulators. One is DOE, the other one is PAN. So closely regulated. If we fail, we get summons. In fact, we get some summons here and there. As I say, because of our plant fail due to theft, because they steal a pump, or we have illegal discharge, or we have power failure. Because we are not like, sorry to say to my friend here, water operator, they extract water, then they play with chemicals. Ours, we are playing with bacteria. And once you disturb the environment, the bacteria die. And to revive back, it takes a long time. I call it seeding process. But those who are interested, please come over to my plant. I can show you the type of, if you're in a house, you have fish, I have bacteria. I have charted them that thing out on the first layer. You don't have to look at the microscope. I have a screen. You just press on, you can see those things moving. It can be in your system if you are not careful. On the MBR, yes, that's a way forward. But I believe we are not ready yet because it's very costly. But should there be a need, then that is good for tertiary treatment. In fact, we have a plan previously done, and currently we have one more. Those are interested, please come over. We have in Cyberjaya that I saw two nationality, one from Korea, one from India. They came in, they just drink with confident because they see that the pilot is a pilot plant actually. It's consists of MBR and alternative to MBR. We have reverse osmosis as well. So, and also if talk about technology, I'm with Jasini, whereby if the tariff is not set right, then there's no incentive. People will not take the second grade water if it's higher than the tap water. It's just logic, you know? Because business-wise, business also boss paid $2 and cents. They look very calculative because if you don't take care of that, then it will be done. So in terms of, since you're from this university, I would like to suggest maybe a joint effort. Okay, I'm just repeating that we should have one ministry, and moving forward to make a legacy, we should create this wastewater hub for the in what they call developing countries, so that we become a model, and thereby we have all this R&D centered at this water hub. So no piecemeal basis. We have a lot of industry that I think water operators also looking R&D, but they are doing all R&D on their own. But what is the demand? What is required to create a product? So it must be based on what is required by the public to increase efficiency, and as such reduce our cost in operation. So touching upon the reducing the cost of operation, IWK, we have our own, which I call it continuing improvement program, where we develop products. It's not very expensive products. I treat it as a third world technology for first class application. I'm not going to say what. I have 100 products. Some of it I'm selecting it for patenting because to the simplest to reduce my cost. If water sector is about NRW, I'm looking at my cost of energy. Cost about 30% of operation cost is on energy. How to reduce energy, and that's upon the gas. What is lacking in IWK? We don't have support in terms of funding. I have to beg from certain agencies to get money to do this gas, what they call evolution, because for those who are looking to the future, I'm looking to the future that one day, that's why I call resource recovery and self-sustainable plant, so that if there's power failure in the grid by TMB, the plant is still operating. If there's no water from Jasni, I can still use to run the plant because of the recycled water to mix my polymer, and it's a self-sustain, and then the benefit goes back to the consumer, but I need support. I call it excellence through innovation. Tariff is tariff, but what I can do to reduce all these things. So I love to see one day you don't have to pay because you are the contributor to the source, and that's what we call resource. If that can be turned around, as I used to say, I don't know whether this can happen or not. People, a long time ago, people don't imagine go to the moon. I'm trying to put a challenge here. The dessert become the main course, the main course become the dessert. And that the thing goes back to the consumer or to the customer. Because I hear just now the problem SMI, the question of reliability. I've been asked, how reliable? I said, the reliability is only when people use the toilet, then I have water. When it comes to my plant, I got 3 products, solid, liquid, and gas. Who are the contributors? All of us. And that is reliability. You have tsunami or whatever, as long as toilet being used, you flush, it goes into my system, you have your product. And that's what I'm trying to sell here. On the other side, I think we have a lot of laws, regulation, and things. What is lacking here is enforcement. I think enough of the law. But you all talk, as what they say in the normal terms, NATO, no action, talk only. So why not we be firm? Firm, and that goes back to what Dr. Chin said, it's about political will. How firm are we? Because what is right is right. You cannot be bending down because of political. It's not about politics. It's about human rights. It's about your rights. Today, those who are being given the facilities, what we have here, you can drink the water. You have choice. But in sewerage, you have no choice. I can bet you if there's no toilet in these facilities, where will you go in this concrete jungle? Where will you go and do your business? You have no choice. So where sewerage is concerned, there's no choice for you. No choice at all. Unless, you are trying to do something different from others, which I don't think so in a civilized way you want to do that. So that is a very important matter to look at. So, and talk about just talking about the merging part, yes. But that merging part also goes back to what Dr. Chin said, it's about tariff. Once I'm stable, then only I can get married with Jasni. I mean, water sector, and I'm not marrying him, it's the water sector. It's about sustainability. That's why you must not forget about the water 3 elements of holistic, transparent, and sustainability. Sustainability is about us, about the consumer rights, and they must know what they're paying for every single cent. And the thing, I think we need more fund. We are lacking behind in sewerage. Back when I came into the industry, it was 33 billion for the next 30 years. When we review back, we need about 52 billion for the next 30 years. And you wait longer, the more damage will be done. Because we are blessed by God, there's nothing happen. As I say, there's no epidemic in this country. And good regulators and good support from all. We have managed to maintain the quality of water. What you see is just ammonia is high and everything, but still, we contain the thing. But the facilities is deteriorating. We are maintaining because what we have, the facilities being not to say subsidized. More percentage of expenditure for capex is by the developers, not by the government. That's why you have all these multi-points plan. And it's scattered all over the country. It's a bit difficult to manage with the 3,000 staff that I have, with 10,000 facilities. You look at the ratio. I don't know, maybe the water operator can compare whether we are efficient or not. 3,000 staff on the ground is only 1,005, and I got 10,000 plant with 21 million customer all over the country. And that's how we manage. And thank God, thanks to all of you, we still survive. Even though our balance sheet shows in the red. But our KPI, we managed to maintain the EU requirement, but of course it's 100%. If 100%, I think I'm God, but I can never achieve 100%. It's about above 90. So I think that's about that. I think water is for the people, so it should be reasonably priced and should be looked at under pretext of this transparency. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dato, and all the rest of the panelists. I think Justin is looking at his watch. I'll wrap up very quickly. I have a couple of points to make. I think not a lot of us actually realize that the amount of water that we have today actually is the same as when Earth was formed some 5 million years ago. It has never increased and it has never decreased. Goes through the hydrological cycle, goes up and comes down. And that's where the problem is. People think that water is renewable. It is renewable, rain comes down, evaporation and so on, but then the quantity remains the same, but the quality has actually deteriorated a lot to the extent that some rivers actually are so dead we can't use it. So it's big problems. So that brings me to the fact that when water is a finite resource, unfortunately the demand for it is not. You know, compared to 50 years ago, we were demanding much less compared to now. Now it's exponential. And in another 50 years to come, where are we going to get the extra water? Maybe we have to desalinate, I don't know, use recycled water or whatnot, because the amount will be the same. But Malaysia's population will be double, 50 million, 80 million, you know. So this is where we have to look at very, very seriously water demand management. We need to reduce from the 294 in Penang down to 150 for Penang, half, you know, or for Malaysia 230 down to 150, at least a Singapore standard. And I think we need to educate our people for that, and we need to find a point where we can hit them, you know. You know how Singapore did it? Singapore, I mean, I don't know whether we have any Singapore friends here. They managed to convince the people to save water simply by saying that if you don't want Malaysia to bully you, save water for your country. That's when we have arguments with them about the water price. And that's when they hit the nail. Penang, we can do that. Don't let Kedah bully us. I mean, then you can ask them to save water. So basically, not just domestic, but also, you know, the hotels, the factories, and so on. So education is very important, and I think Dr. Marumutu has talked about this. We need to go get this into the schools, not just as piecemeal like what they are doing in moral or geography or science, a little bit here and there. I mean, it's got to be a significant subject, you know, in the curriculum, starting from young. NGOs, we cannot do this all the time. How many of us are there in the whole country? You know, you're talking about millions of students. How can you reach all of them? It's impossible to reach all of them. So you have to start at the education level in the schools, by the teachers themselves. We need to have specialized teachers teaching environment, water, not just, you know, insert here and there into the science subject and so on. And coming to the tariff, I think I totally agree that, you know, we should combine the water with the sewerage, simply because what you use actually goes back into the system. And if you don't, if IWK cannot perform, it will ultimately go back to affect the river, and Jasne's water will going to be a big problem. In Penang, we take 80% of the water from the Muda River. So if the Muda River water cannot be used, I think 80% of Penang will go haywire. You're crazy. Yeah, we will be drinking battery water. We have to, you know, seriously think about this sort of thing. And this year, UN Water theme is water cooperation. But Kedah is now wanting to lock again. I mean, this is just one example, but there may be other examples in the country whereby states don't talk to each other, they don't cooperate. I'm not just talking about state, it's just a federal government with state government within state government, and also state government with local government, and so on. They don't talk about it, there's no cooperation in terms of, you know, solving our water problems. I think we need to really seriously sit down. And of course, tariff has got to do with politics as well. I mean, all of us in this room agree that tariff should be revised, not to the extent of jeopardizing the poor we put it aside, but then who are those that are not in favor? Why aren't we having any tariff increase? Because the political masters are not in favor. They are very scared. I don't know why. Increase petrol, everything okay, no? Increase food, sugar, everything okay. But when it comes to water, they are very, very scared. Yeah, this very phobia against increasing the water rates. I don't know why. Maybe they are afraid that someone will die of thirst.
But nobody will die of thirst in Malaysia if we increase the water rates, because even the poor people can get water. Even if you have no income, you can go to the pipe in the school or our community pipe and you can get water. It's not a problem. And the last thing I want to wrap up is about the water saving devices that I think Dato' Tu has talked about, Mr. Chua has raised. The time has come for new projects, not just new projects. I think in the market we should phase out. Every time we flush 9 liters, we don't need 9 liters. Come on, Singapore has gone to 4.5. There are some countries in Japan whereby you also include some pressure into the flush. It's only 2 liters, 1 liter. Why do we still need the 9 liters? Do you know during the World Cup, Dato', during halftime, the consumption of water actually increased 100-fold all over the world, because halftime everybody go to toilet flush. So that's just shows you how much this flush is causing, you know. And all the water is actually going down the drain and it creating more problem with Dato'. So more business for you lah. So I think that kind of wraps up what I have to say. So thank you very much once again for the invitation to come here. Thank you.
Thank you all, distinguished panelists, and also the participants. It was great having all of you here. I think it boils down that we have some level of cooperation, but it needs to be improved, especially in light against the background of the impending change in weather patterns and growth of population, urbanization. We have so many challenges with regards to pollution, pollution control, so on and so forth. So cooperation is needed now, not in 30 years' time, as is now. And we look forward to, like Dr. Chin said, more opportunity to have sessions like this and have different topics to be covered, and hopefully this will advance cooperation between all the multi-stakeholders here in Malaysia to address water issues and to ensure sustainability, safety, continuous supply of clean water. Thank you very much. I'll now pass to the MC and have a round of applause to all of you and also the panelists.
Thank you very much to the panelists and also to all the participants who have involved actively during the discussion session. And we also apologize for the slight technical errors with the mics. And we hope that today's event was a fruitful one and you have acquired important knowledge on Malaysia's water issues. And we also hope that today's discussion will boost cooperation among all parties for a sustainable water management in Malaysia. And we have come to the end of our event today. But before we go for lunch, I would like to remind about the letter for article contribution for our very first Forum IA magazine. We have included deadlines for you to submit the reply slip if you are interested to contribute article for the magazine. And ladies and gentlemen, we have prepared lunch for you at Westside Bistro at ground floor. But before that, I kindly request you to collect voucher for lunch from our secretariat table outside this room. And please feel free to build network during your lunch session. And once again, thank you everyone for gracing our ceremony with your presence, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much and have a nice day.